about him earlier in the program. I think the beginning of the top of the
For the
second
uninformed,
hour.
Smitty is the term that Kenyatta uses to describe Trump in his Substack newsletter, which you can find by going over to Substack and just plugging in Kenyatta. Back to you, sir.
Thank you. And for your listeners that may not know the origins of that term, Smitty, in black communities, people named Smith are often nicknamed Smitty. And Donald Trump, who has words nobody else knows, a stable genius, an exceptional genius, is the smartest man in the history, S-M-I-T-H. So, as a pejorative, I call him Smitty. That's who he is. So, you were talking about Smitty, and I wanted to posit a real quick question to you before saying this. So I'm like you, unfortunately. I'm going to be listening to his big, beautiful announcement tonight. Obviously, he's going to talk about this armada that you just spoke of off the Venezuelan coast, which is a tactical error of epic proportion.
Yep.
But I also believe, Tom, that he is going to announce somebody being removed from his cabinet. I don't know who, but it's just a feeling that I get. So having said that, this is what I wanted to ask you. There's something called sialorrhea. Are you familiar with that medical condition?
I am not.
Okay, it's S-I-A-L-O-R-R-H-E-A. And after a stroke, it causes excessive salivation. Trump did a speech about a week ago about affordability. And I noticed this distinct change in his speech pattern. It's like sialorrhea causes saliva to pool in the mouth and a difficulty managing it because it causes drooling, impaired speech, so forth and so on. And he's had a number in his 11 months in office of disappearances. Now, you know how much of a media prostitute he is. And so, you know, he wants to be all day, every day in the news, grabbing the headlines. And I don't know how many people have been paying attention to this, but in the last 11 months, he's had a number of disappearances that have lasted for days.
And typically they follow his appearances where one side of his mouth seems to sag, which is a sign of a microstroke.
That's what I'm telling you. Now, when he did this speech a week or so ago about affordability, I noticed that there was this kind of sound in his voice. And my question is, I'm wondering if this dude's had a stroke. And the parenthetical question is this. I doubt very seriously, Tom, Trump is going to make it to the end of his term for whatever reason. What say you, brother?
I think the odds of Trump making it to the end of his term are well below 25%. And I base that not so much on the hope that the Democrats actually take power in 13 months and impeach him successfully, but on the fact that he's almost 80 years old, he's obese, he eats a diet that would kill anybody, and he's already showing significant signs of both physical and mental deterioration. So yeah, I'm with you, Kenyatta. I don't expect him to fill out his term, which means that J.D. Vance becomes president, and if that happens, it's going to get real weird.
Well, and that was my anecdotal and final remark. And God, we couldn't have scripted this better, because I know that a lot of people will hear this and say, well, that'll be great. But see, here's the thing. There could be something waiting in the wings worse than Trump, because what Trump has done is he has, regardless how you feel about it, he has changed the political paradigm in this country for decades to come. And the political model that he has put out there is going to be followed, because whether or not you like it, it appears to be, at least electorally speaking, a working strategy.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, you know, the Supreme Court gave Trump immunity and basically everything he wanted. On the other hand, when you had a Democratic president, when Joe Biden was in office, he just wanted to pardon, you know, people's student loans. And the Supreme Court said, oh, no, you can't do that. Sorry, you don't have that much power. So I suspect when a Democratic president comes into office in 3 years, and I fully expect that to happen, that the Supreme Court will start will pull back from all the things, or at least the six the so-called conservatives, these reactionary Republican shills on the court will pull back from that, but we'll see. I think, broadly speaking, I think you're absolutely right. He has changed the nature of the American presidency, and we need to deal with it. The country needs to deal with it. By the way, Kenyatta, just an anecdote Nate just shared, our video guy just shared with me. Simon Bolivar, remember him? He was the guy who was kind of behind Latin American independence and the Venezuelan Revolution. He died on this day back in 1830. So the day that Trump is going to start his war against Venezuela is the anniversary of the death of Simon Bolivar. I doubt Trump will mention that tonight.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it is.
That is very interesting.
History rhymes.
Well, listen, man, if I don't get a chance to holler at you, Louise, the kids, grandkids, and Toshi, have a wonderful, wonderful close of the year. And, I'll be breathing on you soon enough.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Kenyatta. Great to hear from you. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and to you and your family as well.
We say fight back!
Book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Stand Up, Struggle Forward by Sanyika Shakur. This is a book that was written back in the late 90s, but it's still very, very timely. This is from the second chapter titled Class Antagonisms Inside the Fundamental Contradiction of National Oppression. Having just passed the 19th and quickly approaching the 20th anniversary of the LA Rebellion, we should be reminded here of what Rodney King whimpered as he stood in front of a bank of microphones surrounded by class enemies and neo-colonial politicians. We should remember how he'd been dressed in that non-threatening cardigan sweater, white shirt, and black tie, how his hair had been tortured into submission by a jerry curl. We should reflect as well upon how timid and spooked he looked, and on how concerned and stern those who flanked him were as well. That was a Kodak moment. It was staged to foster an image of contrition and resignation, submission, a victim. Rodney King had been led to believe, through a bourgeois sense of reasoning, that the rebellion was really about him, that the reason new Africans and Mexicanos took to the streets of South Central was the result of his filmed beating. That, of course, is typical of mechanical bourgeois thinking. What it's not typical of, however, is someone from the hood. And this cuts both ways. No one in the hoods and barrios ever thought it was about Rodney King. We'd all seen the film over and over like everyone else, but that was par for the course. We'd always seen that, long before anybody caught it on tape. Actually, we'd experienced much more than that. Why, it's safe to say that the hoods had gone to war with each other in vicious waves of internal, intra-class combat for much less than that, though because of a general colonial mentality which prevents the challenging of bottom-up oppression, the same hood forces will not, in any systemic way, wage war on the pigs, or for freedom, land, and socialism. Rodney King alone, and of his own accord, would not have thought to hold a press conference to ask the asinine question in the form of a whimpering request, can't we just all get along? The fact of the matter is, we are getting along. New Africans and Mexicanos are getting along just fine. What we couldn't understand was why he was admonishing us for getting at the exploiters of our communities. The impression he gave, with his handler's hands up his back like a ventriloquist troll, was that a race riot was going on, as if we had all begun to kill each other or burn and rob each other's homes. His handlers compelled him to send up a false flag, a diversion. But you see, this was the very thing that exposed the class interests and reactionary politics of the Uncle Toms that had been designated to handle him, and by extension, us. Let's go back for a minute. Let's talk social development, aka history. There exists a fundamental contradiction in our lives that, like an elephant in the room, no one wants to acknowledge. As a consequence of the war waged upon various African nations by European powers, those of us captured and kidnapped were taken out of our own self-determining social developments and violently forced into Euro-American history. This is not simply a clever play on words. This is a reality. We lost the ability to control our own destiny. Read that again. From that time until now, the fundamental basic contradiction between the U.S. oppressor nation and our own oppressed and colonized nation has been the governing imperialist relationship, which is to say, us not being in control of the qualitative factors that determine our lives as a people, as a nation. Our tradition of struggle against this fundamental contradiction has taken many forms, some hidden or obscured, some open and hostile. But all of these have been open to resolve the fundamental contradiction and to regain our independence. While there have been some bona fide struggles to resolve the contradiction, there have also been reactionary neocolonial struggles waged by internal enemies loyal to the oppressor nation and culture that have tried time and time again to subvert and control our destiny for the benefit of the capitalists. They've come among us, always imposed from above, stirring up emotions and giving lip service to progress, equality, justice, and prosperity. These always within the colonial confines of the oppressor's arrangements, and none collectively ever materialize. Because without a resolution of the fundamental contradiction, that is the freeing of our productive forces from U.S. imperialism and the governing of our own affairs, we'll remain a minority within the American system as opposed to a majority in our own, and subjected to the established bourgeois social contract, i.e. colonialism, neo and post. We can parade all through the empire with black congressmen, black mayors, black governors, black police chiefs, black Supreme Court justices, hell, even a black president. And absolutely nothing will alter the genocidal relationship that governs our national oppression here, because the blacks are part of the colonial apparatus. They have made a strategic alliance with the capitalist imperialists to act as go-betweens in our oppression and exploitation. This is a conscious class stand. The black petty bourgeois is not innocently confused, like, say, Mrs. Jackson across the street is, about our national oppression, about the existence and subjugation of New Africa. They are well-read, have traveled in our experience. They've just chosen sides against us and in favor of our historical enemies. And the sooner we recognize and internalize this, the better off we'll be. Black ain't nothing but a color. As a designation of our national identity, it has played out. It is a superficial understanding at best and a foolish and dangerous analysis at worst. We have no collective control over the qualitative factors which determine our lives. We do not, in other words, control our destiny, not as a people or a state. The book is Stand Up, Struggle Forward by Sanyika Shakur.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Friday, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. It is the end of the week, the beginning of the weekend, and kind of the end of the year. I mean, it's wild. Hey, is the new message of Trump's palace, power first, people last? By the way, are you looking forward to your next visit to Washington, D.C.? You can go visit the Trump Kennedy Center, the Trump Lincoln Memorial, the Trump Roosevelt Memorial, The Trump Washington Memorial, anyway, how do we save journalism and democracy? We'll talk about that in the first hour of the program. And is our gun culture grooming people to kill? All that in the first hour. In the second hour of our program, our single guest for the day is Heidi Siegmund Cuda. Does Donald Trump's chief of staff have Russia ties? That's strange. And was the Trump talent agency and Miss Teen USA show funneling young girls to Jeffrey Epstein? And will Pam Bondi face prosecution if the files are not fully released today? And in the third hour of the program, how strange is it that the Republicans have the urge to jump off the healthcare cliff? Good question. That, and of course, Anything Goes Friday, whatever's on your mind here. I'll be picking up your calls all day long. But, to start out, there's just kind of this basic question. Is the new message of Trump's White House power first, people last? And I think, frankly, it is. This golden palace that Donald Trump is trying to create while, poverty is stalking America. I mean, you've got one guy who has more wealth than the bottom half of America. At the same time that the People's House, a good chunk of the People's House was torn down, the White House, the People's House, and in its place is supposed to come this giant golden palace that according to his own plans, is going to just completely dominate the White House and the West Wing. Historic gardens are being ripped out. A magnolia tree planted by FDR in 1942 is gone. Jackie Kennedy's legacy is being treated like landscaping debris. And according to the National Park Service, this is going to, quote, visually overwhelm the West Wing and the executive mansion. Symbols matter. And the symbol of the White House has always been that this is the people's house, that we don't have kings, we have servants of the people. John Adams was the first president to live in the White House. He moved in 1800. It was the last year of his presidency. Well, it ran until March of 1801. And then Thomas Jefferson was the second to live there. I've never read any anecdotes about John Adams' time in the White House, but I have read several about Jefferson's where he would literally, you could just walk up and knock on the front door of the White House. And if you came early enough, Jefferson would open the door in his pajamas. I mean, he actually opened the door himself, and on some occasions. It was the people's house. Everybody understood, power is temporary in the United States. And at the same time that working people are drowning under rent and groceries and student loans and insurance premiums that climb every year, and we're being told that health care just wasn't meant to be. There's no money for universal care, no money to make life affordable, no money to help people survive. Why? Because we gave it all to a handful of billionaires. There's always money for marble, steel, and ego for Trump or any other dictator, frankly, anywhere in the world. I mean, strongmen, just look around the world at this, right? And throughout history, I mean, whether it's ancient Egypt 6,000 years ago, or however long ago that was, or, the Greek Empire 3,000 years ago, the Romans 2,000 years ago, emperors build monuments to themselves. They always do. These egomaniacal asses, these people who believe that they are at the center of everything, that they are the nation. They build monuments to themselves and they slap their names on everything in sight. And now he's even slapping his name on the Kennedy Center. I mean, this is obscene. Maria Shriver is, whose uncle was Jack Kennedy, President Kennedy, is just beside herself about this. She's like, what's next? Renaming the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Memorial as the Trump memorials. So it's just, I don't think it's beyond possibility. I mean, they're literally putting the Donald Trump, John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. They're literally, right now this morning, they've got video of it on TV, putting up the letters, the Donald Trump, or Donald J. Trump. It's wild. And this new ballroom, it's going to have a secure bridge to the residents of the White House, like, you know, the little people need not apply. I mean, our White House was designed to be modest from the beginning. It's always been modest. You know, there's an old saying, it's usually attributed to Jefferson, although he didn't actually say it. But you know, everybody thinks he did. When government fears the people, there's liberty. When people fear the government, there's tyranny. And Trump wants to make power seem untouchable so that the people will, you know, we the people will fear him and his masked goons. But, you know, the White House belongs to all of us, or at least it used to. And frankly, I hope that we take it back. Every garden, every hallway, every inch of it exists because this country repeatedly for 250 years has said no to kings. And now we're told that we have to accept illness and debt and precarity as fate, but Donald Trump gets to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, slapping his name on everything in sight. This project is Donald Trump saying the quiet part out loud. He's not here to govern us. He's here to rule above us. And that, frankly, is just obscene. I don't have a better word for it. I just consider it obscene. How to save our democracy and journalism. Colby Hall has an interesting piece over on Mediaite. And what he's pointing out is that what is breaking our democracy right now are the algorithms being used by social media products. I've told the story before, but I think it bears repeating. Back in the late 70s, it started around, I think, 78, 79, something like that. Throughout the 1980s and into the early 90s, Nigel Peacock and I ran a bunch of forums on CompuServe, and Sue Nethercutt, who works on our program, also was involved with CompuServe. And although I believe she was just or not just, but was a volunteer. But the CompuServe, prior to 1996, had to operate, as did AOL, by the way, the two big social media companies of that time, had to operate under the same rules as the New York Times or the Washington Post. That is to say, if something got published on their platform that was obscene, defamatory, illegal, you know, soliciting minors or prostitution or selling drugs or guns or something like that, they could be held responsible for it. And so they hired people like Nigel and me and you know, found people like Sue to basically moderate their forums, to control their platforms. And we hired a bunch of people and we shared all the revenue with them. And, you know, they paid us quite well. And then in 1996, Republicans and some Democrats in the House and Senate passed the Telecommunications Act of 1996 with this provision, Section 240, which said that basically at that time, you know, Facebook was becoming a thing, that Jeff Zuckerberg no longer had to worry about liability. He no longer had to pay people to moderate his forums or CompuServes or AOLs. And that was the year that CompuServe basically fired us. They didn't fire us. They said, we love the work you're doing. We're just no longer going to pay you for it. Feel free to continue. And a lot of people did. I mean, you know, some of those forums are still around. But the point is that prior to 1996, we didn't have these algorithms driving social media. Post 96, it all became algorithmically run. And these algorithms promote disinformation and lies and outrage and anger and hate. And they're destroying our political culture, basically, just gutting it. And this is a danger to America. I think a danger to the world, frankly. And we know that it's a danger to the mental health of people, particularly young people. So we need to stop treating this notion that algorithmic amplification, that algorithms that decide what's going to be shoved down our throats when we open, you know, X or Facebook or whatever, that those are somehow free speech. They're not. They're corporate control of a message. And if these corporations have the power to control the message through the algorithm by deciding what they're going to push to us and what they're not, shouldn't they have responsibility for it? I mean, isn't that a pretty important thing? In my book, The Hidden History of Big Brother in America, I write about this, and my suggestion is do away with Section 240. Make it so that, Zuckerberg is going to have to use some of his over $100 billion to hire people like Nigel and me to moderate his groups on Facebook. Make him responsible for what's going on there. And and Musk for X and on. It's pretty straightforward.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And frankly, I think it could save our democracy. We'll be right back, 17 minutes past the hour. And welcome back, John in Bellfront, California. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Tom. Happy holidays to you.
Thank you. Back at you. Oh, it's Bellefonte. Okay, got it.
No, Bellflower.
Yeah. So what's up?
Bellflower, that's 2 words.
Oh, Bellefonte, F-O-N-T?
Bellflower, B-E-L-L-F-O-W-E.
Oh, Bellflower. Oh, okay. Cool. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
I told your screener, breaking news, that Trump is going to rename the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Oh, my God. I hope some people will take action on that.
Like what?
There'll be court challenges.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I hope.
Yeah. And according to Max Rose, the former Democratic congressman, only Congress has the power to name that institution.
Exactly.
But I'm not sure how. I mean, it's going to end up getting litigated.
Oh God, I hope so.
But it's like, you don't put your name on things. It's just never happened in the history of our country. You put dead people's names on things. You wait until they die.
Yeah.
There's not a single Roosevelt monument that was put up while Roosevelt was still alive. The monuments to Franklin Roosevelt are Social Security and the unemployment program and 91% income tax, and the Works Progress Administration, the Hoover Dam, the Tennessee Valley Authority. I mean, these are the monuments to Franklin Roosevelt. This is the extraordinary stuff he did. What are the monuments to Donald Trump? The Epstein files, I guess. But John, excellent point. Thanks a lot for the call, and happy holidays. Omar in Herndon, Virginia. Hey, Omar, what's on your mind today?
Tom, thanks so much for taking my call. I know you lived in D.C., and if you look at the White House before, that iconic picture that registered in everybody's mind is completely different now. It looks like under construction, like a new housing complex under construction.
Yeah, I've been in the East Wing. I was there for, along with Chris Hayes and a few other people, for a briefing by Jared Bernstein, actually, when he was Joe Biden's chief economist.
This is national monument. It's unbelievable. But Tom, real quick, I know one of the reasons why I think John Bongino is exiting, he must have saw something in the Epstein report that is disturbing. And he doesn't want to be part of it.
That's a good question. I used to debate Dan almost every week, when we had the TV show in D.C. and on this program as well. I mean, I've probably sat across the table from Dan, I don't know, 30, 40 times. I mean, a lot. And at least 20 times. And he always struck me as a decent man. I mean, we were always friendly with each other. We strongly disagreed on things, but, I always thought that I beat him in the debates. I'm sure he thought he beat me. But we had good conversations. My thought is that maybe he has too much integrity to be in the Trump administration.
Yeah, and something disturbing. And the last thing, Tom, Jack Smith, I know recently he said that he had evidence that he couldn't present because he would have destroyed Trump, and he had to testify behind the scenes. That was BS, He failed us. Same thing as Robert Mueller and Miller Garner. They all fail us. They're responsible for that.
Well, Jack Smith was playing by the rules. And it's a shame he didn't figure out a way to leak all that stuff.
He failed us. He failed the public.
I understand. I would say Merrick Garland failed us, Omar, because that's who he worked for, but I get it. 21 minutes past the hour. We'll be back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. You know, back in the day, the Republicans had these kind of soft, big lies. Ronald Reagan telling us that if we just cut taxes on billionaires, it'll trickle down to all the rest of us. And you know, climate change isn't caused by fossil fuels, of course. And voter fraud is caused by black people, and gays and lesbians and trans people want to convert your children. All these lies. Public school teachers are communists. They really are not working. So now the Republicans have a new strategy because their lies are not working, including their lies about COVID and about Russia and about the media and everything in public schools, abortion. Because their lies aren't working, they're actually going after university-level researchers who look into how lies are created and propagated across social media and in the media and in politics. It's an amazing story reported by both the Washington Post and the New York Times. I got a whole rant about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
This was supposed to be our house, built with borrowed power, doors meant to stay open, lights meant to stay on.
Mama's counting pills on the kitchen table. He turned low, winter at the door. Daddy's working late, but the math won't save him. Bills keep coming, they always want more.
They say be patient, say it's just the system. Say this is how it's always been. But up on the hill where the lights burn gold and someone's building walls to keep us out again. They're raising a palace for the powerful while we're told to tighten our belts. Marble floors where the money goes, empty pockets everywhere else. They call it progress, they call it pride, but we're freezing right outside. It's the people's house, so we're told. Then why does it feel bought and sold?
24 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So the killer at Brown University and a physics professor at MIT has been caught. He was a Portuguese national. But, you know, it's just the latest in the killings in America. I mean, you know, we're up to, I believe, over 500 mass shootings in the United States now at this point, which raises the question, is our gun culture grooming people to kill? America has become the world's mass killer groomer, not because people here are uniquely hateful or unstable, but because we've engineered a system that trains anger into carnage through sheer access. In a country where getting a gun or a rifle can be as easy as ordering a hamburger, grudges don't cool off, they get armed. The alleged shooter, Claudia Neves Valente, didn't emerge from a vacuum. He emerged from a culture that tells people with a grievance that the fastest path to power is through the trigger. Other nations have rage, resentment, and conflict too, but they don't groom them into mass murder because they refuse to confuse public safety with profit. So let's stop letting the gun lobby write our laws and start passing universal background checks, safe storage, real limits on weapons built for killing. Because this fight isn't just about one shooting. It's about whether we're going to keep raising the next headline or finally choosing a country that values lives over firepower. I think the simple solution is, I laid this out in my book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. The simple solution is to say, you want to own a gun? Fine. You have to live by the same rules that you have if you own a car. You have to have a license, and to get the license, you have to prove that you know the rules and that you know how to use this deadly thing, whether it's a car or a gun. You have to prove it on a shooting range. Number two, you have to register your gun and renew that registration every year so we know who has the guns in the event that a gun is used in a crime. And number three, you have to have liability insurance. If your car hits somebody and hurts them or kills them, they can they can sue your insurance company rather than you, and the insurance company pays. Every person in America who owns a gun should be required to have the same kind of liability insurance that you're required to if you have a car, although not for car accidents, but for gun accidents, gun liability policies. And then the insurance companies, if you can't get the insurance because say you've got 3 arrests for domestic abuse or something, the insurance companies will cut you off. They'll prevent you from owning a gun, just like they can prevent you from owning a car functionally. I mean, they can't literally stop you from owning it, but you're not going to drive it. So I think that this is a simple, straightforward, common sense solution. I don't know why it hasn't been adopted by any states yet. Just regulate guns the way you do cars. I think it's a great start. What say you?
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's Anything Goes Weekend. I'll be back with your calls right after this. Today is the Seven Mountains Mandate by Matthew Bodie, exposing the dangerous plan to Christianize America and destroy democracy. We'll start with the introduction, the story of the mountains. The plan to Christianize America began 50 years ago with a vision from God, or so the legend goes. Bill Bright, the founder of a college campus evangelism organization, had just landed in Colorado in August of 1975 to participate in an event in Boulder. But something planted deep in his spirit had made Bright desperate to talk to Lauren Cunningham, a founder of another youth-oriented evangelism organization who was on vacation in Colorado. The vision from God that Bright had brought for Cunningham was a typed list of 7 influential areas of culture. If Christians could win these 7 areas for Christ, Bright said, the nation could be set right and return to its biblical origins. It would take a massive spiritual war, but ending the demonic control of these areas would have immense impact for the kingdom of God. The vision from God that Bright had brought for the Constitution, the problem was that God had placed Cunningham on a mountaintop near Durango on the other side of the state with no way to communicate. The man who had picked up Bright at the airport said he could get the two together. Someone got through to a ranger station in Durango, and then from there, someone on horseback found Cunningham's remote location. That man took Cunningham to a borrowed plane, which flew Cunningham to meet the man who had the urgent message from God. What Bright didn't know was that God had given Cunningham the same list, though his was sketched out on a legal pad. The two friends presented their lists to each other simultaneously. Cunningham later wrote, "Amazing coincidences like this happen all the time when Christians listen to the still small voice of the Holy Spirit." Over the years, the story of that 1975 meeting has been told many ways, accepted not merely as gospel, but a divine endorsement of the list that Bright and Cunningham created. Whatever the truth of the meeting, the list has become powerful spiritual lore passed down from one generation to another in the movement born from it. That movement is intent on destroying democracy by taking dominion in these 7 institutions: education, family, religion, government, business, media, and entertainment. Over the decades, many have made their mark on the list by envisioning different labels for it. While Bright and Cunningham spoke of areas of influence, others have called them gates, pillars, channels, and most commonly among the movement's supporters today, mountains. The preferred metaphor evolved over time, but the purpose of the list has remained the same: bring the kingdom of God to America by conquering each of these cultural domains. The story of the 7 Mountains movement told in this book is the story of those who inspired and shaped that 1975 list. It's also about how the list has come to dominate American political life in the 21st century without most Americans even having heard about it. This insidious victory is the work of a new generation of believers who have pushed it with more and more aggression, pushing us closer and closer to violence, threatening our society through their claim to divine urgency. In short, this is the story of how the list became a mandate. The spiritual energy behind this mandate pushed the list into the White House with the 2016 election of Donald Trump. From there, the movement exploded beyond the fringes of charismatic evangelicalism into larger institutions, influencers, and financial backers. To the handful of experts who have followed the movement for years, it was no surprise its supporters turned violent when the 2020 election didn't go the way they wanted, the way they say God wanted. This is where the movement has been headed. Yet even more frightening, since the 2021 insurrection at the Capitol, more Americans seemingly want what the Seven Mountains movement wants also. A June 2023 survey of 2,000 Americans estimated about 30% are open to the ideas associated with the Seven Mountains movement, such as things like the U.S. culture is fundamentally Christian, and Christian values should be solely and explicitly endorsed by the government. Another 2023 survey found a similar percentage of Americans either adhering to or sympathetic to these ideals. A second Trump administration only reinforces that. Of course, many of the Americans in those polls are the demographic most supportive of the mandate, the evangelicals. A 2024 survey showed that strong majorities of evangelicals agree broadly with the goals of the Seven Mountain movement. About 55% of evangelicals specifically agreed that, quote, God wants Christians to stand atop the seven mountains of society, end quote. The survey also showed that the percentage of Christian Americans who believe in the mandate increased from just under 30% to over 41% in just 1 year. The surveyors note that, quote, what not long ago seemed to be a marginal set of beliefs has become a dominant religious framework among American Christians, end quote. The Seven Mountains movement has been adopted across the religious right, even by leaders who may not share its theology, because their followers are being motivated by the mandate. For example, the 2022 National Day of Prayer Guide from the Southern Baptist Convention asks its congregants to pray for the seven centers of influence. Beyond religion, the Seven Mountains movement has become so accepted in American society that it has supporters from all levels of government. The book, The Seven Mountains Mandate, Exposing the Dangerous Plan to Christianize America and Destroy Democracy, by Matthew Bondi. From all of us here on the Thom Hartmann program to all of you, happy holidays, and thanks for listening.
On the runaway, Santa's team's on display, but beat us here, they got something to say. Rudolph needs hay that's organic and clean, and a cruelty-free harness with a vegan sheen.
34 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Linda in Chicago. Hey, Linda, what's on your mind today? Happy holidays.
Hey, Tom. Happy holidays to you, too. I have two things I want to say. This is not what I called about, but I do want to say this. If Trump wants to be a great man and remembered, why doesn't he fulfill one thing that he constantly says he's done is solve wars? Why doesn't he back Ukraine and win the war? And then he has all the bragging rights, and on that part, he would have my support almost.
Yeah.
Instead of, instead of putting his name on the Kennedy Center, which is an insult, and the tearing down the East Wing.
Yeah.
But what I really called about,
Venezuela.
Yeah, correct. Why he's got some power, obviously. Why doesn't he do what he can do, and people will honor him instead of him always honoring himself? I'm so sick. Yeah. I've never met him, but I've never seen anybody that got such a, I don't know, it must be in his childhood, but
he's
that
mentally
he has
ill.
to.
He's a very damaged man. He's a pathetic, damaged little boy.
Yep. The thing I really called about, Tom, is I live in Illinois, so it doesn't affect me personally, but affects me in the country. The run for Senate, Janet Mills and the Graham
Planter.
Plantner, is it?
In Maine.
And who are you for? Janet Mills seems to be a good person, but I'm sorry, I'm 75. She's old.
Yeah.
I worry that she'll get in and something will happen to her. And then I've been getting so much stuff about sending money to that Jordan Wood and to the Graham. And I'm just not sold on Graham, but are you? Can you help me on that?
Yeah.
I want to send my money to a good place.
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't send any money anywhere if it comes to you by text message, or email. Go to the actual campaign website of the candidates and do it through their website. But that said, my take on it, and this is a only modestly informed take, Linda. I live on the other side of the country, so I don't follow Maine politics that closely. But I have read a fair amount about this. Is that Janet Mills is kind of like, a Bill Clinton kind of politician. She's the centrist to, take the corporate money, but do some good stuff. I mean, she's a good Democrat. And Graham Planter is more like Bernie Sanders. In fact, I think Bernie has endorsed him. And, I know that he has, in the past, said a few things that got people riled up. But in the past, he was just, he was a soldier and he was just an average guy and all. And he's apologized for them. And I'm more than willing to accept that. I'm a fan of Graham. I would vote for him. If I was donating money into the Maine race, I would donate money to him. And that's not to slam Janet Mills. I think she's a fine candidate. If she was running against, a Republican, I'd support her aggressively. But,
me too.
I'd much rather see another progressive in the Senate than another centrist.
I just really, I have met you once, and I really trust your, you have good instincts, and you do read a lot. And I don't have a lot of money, but I do send money, and I want it to go where Democrats will win.
Well, good on you, Linda. I think he has a very good chance of winning, too. He appears to be really popular in Maine.
Thank you. And I'm all for Ukraine. My heart breaks for those people.
Yeah,
and you had
here.
that Phil Etner, on the other day, and he was saying that Russia really isn't winning, and that's not the portrayal that the media gives. I think that really annoys me. Trump could have a good name and say, I beat communists and I beat Putin. But instead, he puts his name on buildings and he stopped that U.S.
And Putin owns him. I mean, it's just so obvious. I don't know how Putin owns him. I know there's a lot of theories out there, and Craig Unger has been documenting this since the early 90s, and has written several books about it. But it's very clear that Putin owns Donald Trump, and it's a tragedy for our nation and, frankly, for the world, for democracy all over the world.
For the world.
Linda, I got to move along, but happy holidays, and thank you for the call. Sure enough. Keno in Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Keno, happy Fria's Day.
Yes, this week, happy Fria's Day, the goddess of love for whom Friday's named.
Indeed.
Okay, Tom, talking to a young person recently, and he's going to be able to vote in the election, and he said at Christmas time, he says, isn't there a naughty list and a nice list for the Democrats and the Republicans and that I could study and convince other young people to look at? Should we vote in a party that's done more for the American people? You have challenged people to come up with things that the Republicans have done, and from your program and from the Larry of Los Angeles, the economic wizard, we've learned, the Democrats make better economy, the Republicans tank. Is there a book? Does one of your books list the naughty and nice list? Compare and contrast in college. You have compare and contrast the two parties over the past since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Is one of your books do it, or does a book need to be written that compares the naughty?
No, there is. I did write a book that basically does that. It's called The Hidden History of the American Dream. It was my most recent book before the last American president came out. So it came out either early at the beginning of this year or late last year. And, you can find it on Amazon or Powell's or, any bookstore. It should be in any bookstore.
Well, a new book called The Darwinian Trap by Christian Ron, R-O-N-E-N-N. He says that reputation needs to be revived as a way of making decisions. And so in the coming year, the reputation of the Republican Party versus the reputation of the Democratic Party could be compared and contrasted to win over a lot of new young voters. And so your book, but let's emphasize the reputation of the two parties needs to be brought up for the coming election as a Christmas gift for us next year to have a Democratic Congress. And of course, Trump will be gone sometime in the next year or year and a half
or three. I mean, we'll see. But he's going to, if the Democrats can take the House next November, and there's a very, very good chance that they will, that's going to be the end of Donald Trump's power. or much of Donald Trump's power. So we're all holding our breath for the next 12 months to see how much damage he can do. Is he going to tear down the Washington Monument? Is he going to, replace Lincoln at the Lincoln Monument with himself sitting in that giant chair? It's like, what's going to happen?
In the coming year, let's have the naughty-nice comparison between the Republicans and Democrats for the voters to think about, put in the Democrats to do more for them in the coming year.
There you go. The Hidden History of the American Dream, Keno, is the book.
Okay,
Keno, thanks a lot for the call, and happy holidays to you.
I'll be pushing it.
Okay, thank you.
And may the Democrats get you to be a spokesman for them, too.
Wouldn't that be nice? Thanks a lot, Keno. Bob in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Hey, first and foremost, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa to you, your family, and all of your crew.
Well, thank you. For us, it's Christmas, so thank you, Bob. And okay. Merry, whichever holiday it is for you, happy holidays to you, too.
I just typically follow the Klingon religious practices, but I appreciate that. No,
all right.
I've been raised under the Christian tradition.
Sure.
So, but
well, Merry Christmas, Bob.
Thank you. So I left. So I talked to Mateo as a screener, and I wanted to give a real quick conversation on healthcare and also positive and, or I should say, sadness, but also happiness or a light, and that is in regard to dementia. And I know that I know you shared that your mother has passed with dementia, and I had a sister-in-law. I'm sorry, and I had a sister-in-law last year. Tomorrow will be the anniversary, a year ago, that she had been diagnosed and passed away. She was in hospice. But I also have a coworker who has come back from dementia, who stopped the slide and come back. Yes, and I wanted to share.
How did that happen?
Well, I gave this to Mateo, but it's and I heard this is something my wife and I, we always thought that this is like 5-6 years before. Dr. Dale Bredesen out of UC San Francisco. The last name is Bredsen, Dale Bredesen, and he's like an endocrinologist. But basically, he found in the process of trying to figure out Alzheimer's and other dementia disorders or illnesses, what was causing it. And his protocol is basically, it isn't just everybody's going after the one pill like or I should say, or the infusion like we're seeing with the orange the orange animatronic robot that is in trouble here, Mr. Trump. But the point is that it's a systemic thing. And basically, if I were to break it down, 5 parts. If you've been exposed to heavy metal or mold, number 2 is making sure your hormones are really, really in balance, but a much more deep dive. Number 3 and 4 are really critical, which I know you're doing, is eating well, eating clean, exercising, and then the 5th thing would be mental stimulation, and then the last one is sort of like part of a bigger community. Yeah. And he has on his website, but also the thing that we heard in the radio station was him talking to this other, it's on WUNC, it was People's Pharmacy. He had one of his patients come on board. She had come back. She was slightly
That's great rational stuff, Bob. I would add, fish oil supplementation and phosphatidylcholine and magnesium threonate. Sometimes it's sold as Neuromag by Life Extension. Those supplements seem to have a big impact as well, and lots and lots of greens. Bob, thank you. Happy holidays to you. 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Today is Epstein document release day. Apparently, a couple 100,000 will be released. I'm not holding my breath, though. Are you? We'll be right back with you, Paul. And welcome back, Michelle in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Michelle, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I kind of wanted to defend a gentleman that called, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, when he was talking about he lives in a neighborhood and his friends keep going, oh, there's so many black people in the neighborhood. He's like, well, if you hadn't moved out, there would be black people. I think you kind of took it the wrong way, because I live in a neighborhood in northeast Kansas City, Missouri, the best neighborhood in the world. Where whenever they did school desegregation, people were selling their 4-story homes for $5,000, $10,000 just to get away. Not even for black people moving into the neighborhood, just the thought of their child sitting next to a black child in school, because they did do forced busing, whole different conversation. But
that was
we
back
stayed.
in the
My family
60s,
stayed.
wasn't it, or 70s? That was the 70s.
This was in Jimmy Carter in Kansas City. It had to be 1977 or 78.
Yeah.
And they left. My family stayed because my dad and my mom are like, well, if you can't learn sitting next to a black kid, then you're stupid, and that's disappointing. So we stayed. I've been here for 56 years, have not left the neighborhood. Well, now the neighborhood's all fancy. So people are like, oh, it's just not the same neighborhood. Well, y'all left. So, of course, it's not the same. You guys just ran because you couldn't even sit next to a black person in a schoolroom.
Yeah.
So that's what I think he was trying to articulate.
Probably, yeah, and may well be. I wasn't, outraged by it. I wasn't sure what he was trying to say, and that's why I kind of ended the conversation quickly. But I get it.
I just wanted to correct you.
And it's funny how these neighborhoods that, flip from white to black are increasingly flipping back to white as they get gentrified. I mean, that's one of the big things I saw in D.C. And, both of those transitions can be brutal on the people involved.
Well, you know what saved mine? This neighborhood is 55,000 people, 6 neighborhood associations, very large neighborhood, but it's still northeast.
Yeah.
What saved my neighborhood, Tom? Immigrants.
Yeah.
Because when all the white folk left, immigrants moved in, and they took over stores that closed down, bought houses, improved them. So,
it seems a lot of this is initially driven by racism and race, but then it typically becomes about class. It becomes about, particularly the gentrification, and that's what I was thinking of when I said the damage that it does is suddenly people are, who've lived in the neighborhood for a generation or two are facing exploding property tax bills. That was the big thing I was seeing in D.C.
We're lucky still in Northeast that the Jackson County hasn't quite discovered us yet.
In Kansas City.
So our tax rates are still low. But, Tom, I just wanted to defend the gentleman that called it. I don't think he was being racist. I think he was kind of my same frustration. And by the way, when the new people move in and try to gentrify, we call them urban pioneers, and we do appreciate their services.
Okay.
Tom, have a good one, honey.
Thank you, Michelle. You have a wonderful holiday season, you and your family, and appreciate your calling, and thank you again for watching Free Speech TV.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good talking to you. It is, this whole gentrification thing and neighborhoods changing and all that. It's a fascinating thing to watch. Sadly, so often it's driven by basically profit exploiting racism. Splitting black neighborhoods with freeways, for example, which was a big thing. It happened here in Portland back in the 50s. I think they're getting wiser about this now, more thoughtful, but it's still a challenge. 49 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Human beings have a couple of unique characteristics. The first is that we can be very tender and loving and concerned and caring toward people we perceive as being our group, us. We can also be extraordinarily violent against people that we consider to be them, if we think of them or this other as a threat. Probably the classic example of this is Adolf Hitler convincing Germans that, Jews were a threat to them and good Germans going along with the Holocaust. Well, this othering is built into our DNA. This is, ancient stuff. And the Republican Party, since the time of Nixon, when he started, picking up the white racist vote after Democrats laid it down in the 60s, the Republicans have been using this to try to other minorities in America as a political strategy. And this is really deadly stuff. There's a whole op-ed about it over at HartmannReport.com. Is othering human nature's deadliest instinct? Check it out.
Marching boots on city streets, paper laws beneath his feet. Every voice that dares to sing falls silent in the shadow of a crown.
51 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. John in Vashon, Washington. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Tom. I am a very, very long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, thank you, John.
I really enjoy your programming, like you say, smart people. However, stop saying that man's name. Come up with all the great synonyms. Smitty, the fat man, the orange Cheeto. That man thrives on hearing his name, and he does stuff just to hear people go, oh, you're such a jerk. So that's a strong suggestion. Second is, sorry, I'm working. I took a breath.
Okay.
The other is, please, if you can, continue to keep in the conversation that Trump didn't win that election. Like you said before, voter purge, misinformation, that's what won the election.
Yep.
And until somehow that kind of stuff gets dealt with, we're going to struggle. So this is people.
It's interesting. The DNC did an analysis. You know, they've spent a year now, or almost a year, breaking down exactly why Kamala Harris lost the election, and now they're refusing to publish it. You know, I want to see that. I really do. John, thanks for the call, and happy holidays. Okay. I got to move along. Kevin in Mason, Ohio. Hey, Kevin, what's up?
Thanks, Tom, for taking my call. I was a sophomore at Brown when they killed my president, 1963, and I drank myself into the infirmary for the weekend, and it was, and so that memorial is a sacred place because it keeps on giving. It's not just stones and carvings.
Yeah.
You mentioned that we don't name things after living, and it brought me back to Julius Caesar putting himself on the coin, and remembering that Trump is going to be on a coin next year.
Yeah.
I think it's a dollar.
That's
coin.
a great analogy, or historical point, I guess would be what it is, actually.
Yeah. You know the poem Ozymandias by Shelley?
I don't. I know of it, but I've never read the poem, to the best of my knowledge. Is there a famous line from it I might recognize?
It's about a couple of ankles of stone in the desert in Egypt, and there's nothing left.
I'll have to check
on
it
the
out.
pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. It's worth a read.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a kind of the poignancy of people who think that they have eternal power, and then they just they're mortal just like all the rest of us.
I mean, he pretended in this Oval Office press conference yesterday that, I was just informed that they've renamed the Kennedy Center after me, and I'm honored, and I didn't know anything about it. What a wonderful board we have. He cleaned out the old board and put in all these.
Oh, they're all Trump suck-ups, and on multiple occasions. I mean, I've seen with several of his rallies where he's suggested that they should name it after him. So this was nothing new.
And suddenly the letters are going up today. So they've been formed, and
this has been in the planning stage for a while. In other words.
Oh, it's so deeply. I need your sense of humor.
My word is obscene. I don't have a funny thing for it.
It's obscene.
I think
it's obscene.
I really think it is, and I think it's obscene not just in the classic sense of something that people want to turn away from or are have a salacious fascination with, but I think it's obscene in the moral sense. It's obscene in the context of democracy. It's obscene in the context of of, just being adults in this world. This is not the behavior of a mentally healthy adult. Whether it's tearing down the East Wing without permission and without discussion, trying to build a ballroom that's going to overwhelm the White House, putting his name he put his name on the Reagan Center for Peace too. It's now the Donald J. Trump Center for Peace. It's obscene. There's no better word for it, Kevin. It's childish, pathetic, obscene. Kevin, happy holidays to you, and thanks again for calling and for listening to us on SiriusXM. I appreciate it. Thank you. We'll be right back with is Heidi Cuda? Yeah, she's at the top of the next hour. Heidi Siegmund Cuda will be with us. Does Donald Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, does she have Russian connections? Really? Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Guns for Hire, how the CIA and U.S. Army recruit mercenaries for white Rhodesia. It's a historical reprint of what appears to be a 1979 pamphlet, basically. This is from the introduction. It does have an ISBN number. It is available in book sources. In Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, actually this must have been published post-1980 because they're referencing Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, 270,000 white settlers, mostly immigrated since World War II, controlled the government and economy, ruling over the 7 million black Africans. The Zimbabweans cannot vote. They have been forced off the bulk of the arable land, and they have no democratic rights whatsoever. All labor performance in Zimbabwe is black labor, and it is intensely exploited, often at less than subsistence wages. Zimbabweans have been fighting European invaders since the early 17th century. Since the 1890s, they have been directly ruled by Europeans, at first in the form of a private British corporation, the British South Africa Company. Since 1923, direct political rule has been in the hands of the white settlers, currently led by Ian Smith and his fascist Rhodesian Front Party. It's important to note that the white settlers were originally given this direct local power as a, quote, self-governing colony of the British government, thereby creating a master-caretaker relationship. During these past 80-odd years, Western imperialism, the multinational corporations of the United States, Britain, and South Africa, has extracted huge profits from the exploited and oppressed Zimbabwean population via the subsidiaries of the Anglo-Americans, Lonrho, Amex, AMAX, Union Carbide, Mobil, ITT, and other corporations. They fully intend to continue doing so as long as they can. The white settler minority has been rewarded for their violent subjugation of the Zimbabwean people with perhaps the highest national standard of living in the world. Sir Roy Walensky, the former Prime Minister of the Central African Federation, which included what is now Rhodesia, once said, "This man Smith has an appeal. It's the appeal of an easy life. For $6,000 a year, you can have 5 servants, a swimming pool, and a lot." Beginning during the early 1960s, however, the Zimbabwean nationalist forces under the leadership of the Zimbabwe African National Union, ZANU, evolved the strategy of guerrilla war to liberate their people and land. It is proving to be very successful. There are 20,000 guerrillas in base camps in Tanzania and Mozambique, over 3,000 in Zimbabwe itself, and this number is continually rising. In a meeting between Stephen Solars, a U.S. congressman, and the ZANU guerrilla leaders, They were reported to reject the possibility of enlisting the assistance of Cuban or other foreign troops, declaring that if we cannot liberate ourselves, we do not deserve to be liberated. Despite Western propaganda to the effect that the U.S. and British only wish to avoid a bloodshed in Rhodesia, don't forget the Zimbabweans have been bleeding for almost a century, their real fear is that the liberation struggle will win. With this victory in sight, it is not surprising that the counterattack by the Smith regime has become more vicious and brutal. Actually, this must have been published pre-1980, because this is when Smith was still in power in Rhodesia. More than 250,000 rural Zimbabweans have been forced into concentration camps. Terrorist raids have been conducted against Zimbabwean refugees in Mozambique. Dusk to dawn shoot-on-sight curfews have been instituted and enforced in the border areas. And escalating counterinsurgency attacks have been launched against the military arm of the liberation struggle, the Zimbabwean People's Army, ZIPA. It is crucial for Westerners to understand that the Smith regime has not stood alone in this barbaric campaign. This pamphlet documents the critically important element in U.S. imperialism's support for the Smith regime, white mercenary reinforcements for the fascist Rhodesian, quote, security forces. This flow of U.S. mercenaries to prop up white Rhodesia is an important, though secret, part of U.S. imperialism's strategy for Africa. The U.S. has massive investments in southern Africa. Zimbabwe alone supplies the bulk of high-grade chrome ore used in the U.S. for jet engines and other advanced technological items. Coal, copper, and other minerals are ripped out of Zimbabwe for U.S. industry. Mobil Oil, Texaco, Hertz Rent-A-Cars, Holiday Inns, and many other U.S. corporations operate illegally in Rhodesia through foreign subsidiaries. More important still is South Africa, the fortress of U.S. interests in Africa, where $1.5 billion is invested by GM, IBM, Ford, and other giant multinational corporations. The liberation of Zimbabwe would, for the first time, penetrate the buffer zone of satellite countries protecting the borders of South Africa. South African guerrilla fighters, who are already training by the thousands in camps in Tanzania and Zambia, would have direct access to re-enter their land and accelerate the liberation struggle. Knowing that the stakes are high, U.S. imperialism has worked to strengthen the white supremacist outposts in Africa, although at times this had to be done covertly. In 1970, the Nixon White House approved Henry Kissinger's Operation Tar Baby strategy, based on Option 2 of the Secret National Security Study Memorandum No. 39. This strategy essentially called for covert military assistance, including direct exchanges, so that South African troops could be trained in the U.S. in specialized tactics and weapons. This would be done while the U.S. tried to convince Africans that it was on their side. This is from the pamphlet number 39, that Kissinger memorandum. We would maintain public opposition to racial oppression, but relax political isolation and economic restrictions without openly taking a position undermining the United Kingdom and the UN on Rhodesia. We would be more flexible in our attitudes toward the Smith regime. And it goes on from there. Guns for hire.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the second hour of our program. On the line with us is our buddy Heidi Siegmund Cuda, the author and an Emmy Award-winning investigative reporter, co-host of the Radicalized Truth Survives podcast. She has a great Substack newsletter. It's BettyDangerous.com, Betty spelled B-E-T-T-E, and it's free. I strongly suggest you sign up for it. She just publishes some brilliant stuff, including this most recent piece about Zarina Zabrinsky. Tell us about this, Heidi.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me all right, Tom?
Yeah, just fine.
Oh, wonderful. So the day after the election, Zarina Zabrinsky, we both write for Byline Times, she basically was feeling pretty demoralized, as was I. We're doing all this work and this is the outcome. And she began to wonder, do people even care? You know, do they even care about all these Russian connections? And I told her, I care. It matters to me what you write. She's been in Ukraine for 4 years documenting Russia's war of aggression there. And she's like, well, I do have this one article on Susie Wiles. I'm like, let's have it. So a couple days later, we publish it. And basically, through open source information, all this information is public. You can see step by step Susie Wiles' connections to Russian money, Russian oligarchs, the fact that her daughter and even she would not be able to pass any national security tests. And here's why this matters, of course. The bottom line is that Russia was able to capture the Republican Party and large segments of the press. And basically, the connections between GOP political operatives and Russian money strikes at the very heart of our troubles. And in her case, Wiles had been a political decades, basically working in Florida with people like Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis. Her husband was connected to an oligarch who himself was connected to a former deputy head of the FSB and Putin. And then Wiles takes a job working for Mercury Public Affairs as the co-chair. Why does this matter? Mercury Public Affairs takes money working for sanctioned oligarchs, lots of money. One of her colleagues, too, took money working for a sanctioned oligarch, and his name was Oleg Deripaska. He took that gig in an indirect way, working for Oleg through a cutout in London, a man named Lord Barker. All of this is related to big money. All of it's related to Russian oil. And ultimately, you see a Vanity Fair piece, and you see this kind of nice, matronly-looking woman in what is sort of a Susan Collins-esque interview, like, oh my, oh golly, this is so bad, not doing anything to stop this. And I look at it like a gang of criminals being whitewashed again. To me, this isn't politics. It's a systemic takedown of American democracy through people who have these Russian.
Now, it sounds to me like all of these connections between Susie Wiles and Russian oligarchs, Russian money, Russian oil, indirectly Putin, are not direct. They're kind of guilt by association. You know,
right.
Has she specifically taken money from Russian oligarchs at any point in her career?
Here's kind of an example of that. When she's working as the campaign manager on Ron DeSantis's gubernatorial campaign, there's an FEC complaint filed that she took money from an oligarch into his campaign. She denies it. The complaint goes away. But you have to ask, why would you step in and become co-chair of an organization that not only takes money with sanctioned oligarchs, but Mercury Public Affairs had to register retroactively as a foreign agent and was fined, and also it's so crazy because it all ties into Paul Manafort, of course. Mercury took money to whitewash Paul Manafort's claim and, put a bunch of op-eds in AP and Washington Post, et cetera, et cetera. So Susie Wiles can say, I didn't know or have plausible deniability, but why go to that firm that has to register retroactively as a foreign agent? Why pick that firm? And if you look at everybody in Trump's orbit, you've got Susie Wiles associated with these characters, her husband taking money. You basically have Paul Manafort also working as an unregistered foreign agent, Mike Flynn taking money, Donald Trump selling real estate. Like, I don't know how much more evidence we need, not to mention the fact that they are doing Putin's bidding on the global stage. So yes, she can say, as Trump's chief of staff, I had nothing to do with this. But, you know, again, when everybody in your orbit is profiting off of money that ultimately ties them, you know, to Russian intelligence and the Russian mob, okay, you know, go ahead and just, you know, play that matronly role and whitewash this criminal game.
Yeah, it's particularly troubling. I mean, I would forgive all this kind of stuff or forget it or set it aside or whatever the proper phrase is if we were engaging in Ronald Reagan's foreign policy, you know, or Bill Clinton's foreign policy. If we were defending Ukraine against Russian aggression, if we were trying to fortify and strengthen NATO rather than tear it down, if we were trying to help you know, build the EU rather than ridicule it. But no, we keep taking the side of Russia. I think it's important to remember that Paul Manafort was the guy that was hired by an oligarch close to Putin to run the campaign for the guy who was Putin's toady, who became the president of Ukraine. Is it Yanukovych? Am I remembering correctly?
Yes, correct.
And Manafort was paid something like $14 million to do that. And Yanukovych got evicted in the Orange Revolution. You know, when the Ukrainians said enough, we want our democracy back. We're tired of being a vassal state of Russia. And what did Manafort do then? And by the way, long before that, it was Manafort, Stone, and Roger Stone. Mm-hmm. He was his partner. And who's the guy who, you know, back in the 60s,
Lee Atwater.
You could say Lee Atwater. Thank you.
The torturers lobby.
Yeah, and the N-word. You know, it was Manafort, Stone, I mean, this is. So anyhow, he comes over to the United States straight from, you know, Russia and Ukraine, after taking, you know, millions and millions of dollars, you know, of essentially Putin's money, and volunteers for free to run Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. I mean, it's just nuts.
Yeah, and doing that to get whole with Oleg Deripaska, again, who is represented indirectly through Mercury. And, you know, I look at, if you look at Twitter right now, you will see all the GOP politicians openly retweeting and engaging with Russian propagandists from Russia. The fig leaf has been off, I think, for a long time. Yeah. When you look at the Vanity Fair article, it's just not politics as usual. And the last thing I'd love to say, Tom, is that in Estonia, a week ago today, they just convicted 3 pro-Russian politicians of high treason, sentencing them to 14 years in prison, because they know if they allow pro-Russian politicians to do the work in Estonia, then they risk their national security and they are risking their democracy. That's not our story, unfortunately, in America.
Yeah, no, and it's amazing how Trump has, you know, Russia, hoax. Incredible stuff. Check it out. Go over to Substack and just plug in Betty Dangerous, B-E-T-T-E, Betty Dangerous, or go to bettydangerous.com for that matter. And there is Heidi's newsletter as Betty Dangerous, and it's just absolutely brilliant. You've got to check it out. Heidi, thanks a lot for dropping by.
Thanks so much, Tom.
And happy holidays to you and your family. It's always great talking with you. Thank you. 15 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. Stay with us. And welcome back. Hey, I just wanted to our people who are watching us on Free Speech TV, just wanted to remind you that Free Speech TV is running an end-of-the-year survey. They want to hear from you. As a way of improving their programming and making sure that they're doing the stuff that their viewers want. And if you didn't get an email from them, if you're on their mailing list, you got an email asking you to click the link. If you didn't get that, there is I believe that there's a link over at freespeech.org. And we've got there's a QR code. I'm going to pass this along to Nate, and we'll try to put up the QR code in the following hour, you know, and then during one of these breaks an hour from now, so you can scan your TV. So kind of a little advance notice here for you. But all that said, let's pick up some calls here. Bill in Port Townsend, Washington. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I was just wondering, how long do you think it will take our government to go bankrupt with Donald Trump deciding to memorialize his true social ranting?
Yeah, well, it depends on how you define bankrupt. I mean, you know, our liabilities are now greater than our assets. So, as a result of Trump's 2 tax cuts.
I wanted to run a revenue generation idea by you, since it's Anything Goes Friday. What if we just, how much was the military budget? $900 billion, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost $1 trillion. It's just a little short of that.
We designated $52 billion every year to a windfall for registered voters, and made 1,000 millionaires by drawing of registered voters every week. And you can opt out if you have philosophical problems.
Am I understanding correctly, Bill, that what you're suggesting is that when you register to vote, you're essentially entering a lottery?
No. When my sister-in-law called me out on the lottery, I'm saying a windfall. And so every week we draw out of the registered voter pool. We draw 1,000 people, give them $1 million tax-free, and they're out of the drawing for 10 years. They can still vote, of course.
Yeah.
Other than voter suppression and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
that's an interesting idea, Bill. I mean, you know, in Australia, there's the stick, right? If you don't vote, your taxes go up. You pay, I think it's $25 the first year, and then $125 the second year, something like that. But here we can't do that because, you know, you're right. No. The First Amendment has been interpreted as your right to speak is also equivalent to your right to not speak. So you can't be forced to speak, to express your preference for a political candidate by voting. But to give people a benefit to voting, you know, that's... Yeah, and you can't pay people to vote because that's considered buying votes. I don't know if this would fall under that rubric or not.
52,000 millionaires in the country every year, right?
Yeah.
Something like.
Yeah, and you know, and keep in mind, you know, $1 million isn't what it used to be, but it's
but tax $1 million, and then they'd go out and spend it.
Yeah. Interesting idea, Bill. Keep thinking. I like the way you think. Happy holidays too to you and your family. Bill, thanks for the call. It's 19 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 1 minute. Stay with us. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. Donald Trump lost, voter suppression won in 2024. That's the headline over at HartmannReport.com, and just a brilliant article written by Greg Palast exclusively for the Hartmann Report. He writes, Trump lost. That is, if all legal voters were allowed to vote, if all legal ballots were counted, Trump would have lost the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Vice President Kamala Harris would have won the presidency with 286 electoral votes. And if not for the mass purge of voters of color, if not for the mass disqualification of provisional and mail-in ballots, if not for the new mass vigilante challenges in swing states, Harris would have gained at least another 3.5 million votes, topping Trump's popular vote tally by 1.2 million. Greg brings us the numbers. He lays it out. You can read it over at HartmannReport.com, absolutely free. It's titled Trump Lost, Vote Suppression Won at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
Well, I woke up this morning, turned on my screen, saw Trump and Musk in a Twitter war scene. One said I bought the Senate, the other said so. I bought the man who runs your favorite show. They're punching and posting and flexing their might, while the rest of us wonder who shut off the light. Democracy's wheezing in a billionaire fog as Justice Roberts walks his billionaire dog. Who owns America? Is it Bezos, Musk, or Vlad? Who bought the Constitution with a platinum Amex pad? It ain't we the people, that ship's in distress. It's a yacht club cage match in a democracy mess. Oh, say, can you see? We've been repossessed.
22 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So today the Epstein documents are supposed to drop, and we've already been informed by Todd Blanche. Used to be Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer. Then he became the assistant attorney general, and then he went and met with Ghislaine Maxwell for several days, many, many hours. And apparently he made the decision to move her into this country club. Trump is claiming that he's outraged by it or harumping or whatever. I'm not buying that. I don't think Todd Blanche goes to the bathroom without Donald Trump's permission. But, you know, that's just me. But even though the files are not out yet, and anyhow, Blanche said on Fox News this morning that it's only going to be a small release. They're going to release part of them, a couple 100,000 documents this morning, and they will be heavily redacted, presumably heavily redacted. I'm sure, you know, I mean, we've heard the story that Pam Bondi had 1,000, or Kash Patel had 1,000 FBI agents spending weeks going through and removing every reference to Donald Trump from the Epstein documents. So, you know, we'll see. But yesterday, the New York Times published a piece that just has not gotten anything close to the attention that I think it deserves. It's titled Don's Best Friend, How Epstein and Trump Bonded Over the Pursuit of Women. And they basically document that, you know, for about a decade, these two guys were best friends. Donald Trump's wingman, that's the word that the New York Times uses, was Jeffrey Epstein, when they went out preying on women, looking for women to seduce or abuse, or however you want to characterize it. And I just want to share a couple of paragraphs from this piece, because I think they're pretty pivotal. This is and by the way, the authors of this, Nicholas Confessori and Julie Tate. And Nick has been on this program, does just absolutely great work. Julie, I don't know, but you know, she's a good reporter. So, quoting from the article, in an email among those released by Congress in November, Mr. Epstein boasted that he, quote, gave Mr. Trump a 20-year-old woman whom Mr. Epstein dated in the 1990s. During a flight together in the early 90s, Mr. Trump came onto another Epstein employee traveling with them, telling her that he could have anyone he wanted, according to a different Epstein worker who learned of the incident. A separate Epstein employee from that era recalled that Mr. Trump would occasionally send over modeling cards for Mr. Epstein to peruse like a menu. Now that line, that last line there, just stopped me dead. Because during that period of time, if my recollection is correct, Donald Trump owned a modeling agency that specialized in young women, and Miss Teen USA, where he famously bragged about walking into the dressing room when they were naked because he owned it and he could do it. And some of the girls have since gone on the record, or young women, I think you could call many of them girls, gone on the record saying how creepy it was that Trump would try to time his walking in to when they were taking their clothes off. But if Trump is sending modeling cards to Epstein, does that mean that the Trump modeling agency or Miss Teen USA was being used as part of a pipeline for sex trafficking? I mean, I don't know. I don't see the specific evidence of that being laid out here in this New York Times article, other than this one sentence. A separate Epstein employee from that era recalled that Mr. Trump would occasionally send over modeling cards for Mr. Epstein to peruse like a menu. Oh, yes, I'll take 2 of the blondes, 1 of the redheads. Really? It goes on to say, over the course of his friendship with Mr. Epstein and beyond, Trump left a trail of alleged abuse and assault, many details of which began to surface publicly during his successful 2016 presidential campaign. Close to 20 women have publicly accused Mr. Trump of groping, forcibly kissing, or sexually assaulting them, behavior that he once bragged he could get away with because of his celebrity, but later denied ever engaging in. In 2023, the writer E. Jean Carroll won a $5 million civil judgment against Mr. Trump for sexual abuse and defamation. So I think that this bears closer investigation. I've not seen anybody bring this up. And I don't know if it's because there's no there. I mean, it's a very real possibility. Failure of imagination or fear of lawsuits or something. But, you know, what was the deal with the Trump modeling agency? I'd love to see the records there and see if there's an association between women at the Trump modeling agency and Epstein. We know that Mar-a-Lago was a hunting ground for Ghislaine Maxwell to recruit girls for Epstein. That's where she got Virginia Giuffre. So, you know, inquiring minds want to know. What say you? Your calls are up next. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception and all those reactions. I'll be right back with you. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Unsettling Truths, the ongoing dehumanizing legacy of the doctrine of discovery by Mark Charles and Soon Chan Ra. This is from chapter 1. You cannot discover lands that are already inhabited. I, Mark, said this almost under my breath as I walked past a line of men dressed as Spanish sailors from the 1490s. I was in front of Union Station in Washington, D.C., near the massive statue of Christopher Columbus overlooking the United States Capitol. Every Columbus Day, there's an official ceremony in this plaza honoring Columbus as the discoverer of America. I had stumbled upon this ceremony by accident the year prior. There were a few non-natives holding signs and protesting the ceremony, but nothing very disruptive. I went back the following year primarily out of curiosity. I wasn't intending to protest, nor did I want to make a scene. As I walked up behind the statue and approached the group of men dressed as Spanish sailors, the words just came out of my mouth. You cannot discover lands already inhabited. As I walked further down the line, I said it again, this time a little louder. You cannot discover lands already inhabited. As I continued walking, I came to the front of the line where a group of men dressed in suits were standing. I repeated myself, making sure they could hear me. You cannot discover lands already inhabited. Suck it up, was the reply I heard as I kept walking. By this time, I'd walked around the statue and reached the front where a small stage had been erected and chairs set up for people to watch the ceremony. It hadn't started yet, but more than half the audience was seated waiting for it to begin. So I stopped near the center, turned toward the crowd, and in a calm but loud voice I said to the people, you cannot discover lands already inhabited. That process is known as stealing, conquering, or colonizing. The fact that America calls what Columbus did discovery reveals the implicit racial bias of the country, that Native Americans are not fully human. Quickly, one of the white men dressed in a suit walked over and interrupted me. You are not welcome here, he said as he grabbed my arm and began walking me away. I attempted to explain the inappropriateness of both celebrating this holiday as well as hosting this ceremony, but instead of engaging in conversation, he threatened me with arrest and escorted me from the area. As I walked away from the gathering, I was amused at his words and the irony of their context. A white man participating in a public ceremony honoring Christopher Columbus as the discoverer of America, telling a native man he was not welcome in that space. How did a flawed assumption about the place of the indigenous population in U.S. society become normative? How are assumptions so deeply ingrained in the American psyche and imagination that dysfunctional and oppressive actions emerge? How did a dysfunctional idea and worldview form that allows for the displacement of native bodies? One of the explanations for the formation of this dysfunctional worldview is the doctrine of discovery. The doctrine of discovery is a set of legal principles that govern the European colonizing powers, particularly during the administration of indigenous land, regarding the administration. It is the primary legal precedent that still controls native affairs and rights, and international law formulated in the 15th and 16th centuries. From a theological perspective, the legal and political role of the doctrine of discovery is rooted in a dysfunctional theological imagination that shaped the European colonial settler worldview. The doctrine emerged from a series of 15th century papal bulls, which are official decrees by the Pope that carry the full weight of his ecclesiastical office. On June 18, 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued the papal bull Dum Diversus, which initiated the first set of documents that would compose the doctrine of discovery. The official decree of the Pope granted permission to King Alfonso V of Portugal, quote, to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens, Muslims, and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ wheresoever placed, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever, held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors the kingdoms, dukedoms, counties, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his or their use and profit. End of quote from Pope Nicholas's papal bull of 1452. Dum Diversus would identify the Saracens, a common term for Muslims at the time, and pagans, essentially identifying any non-Christians as others, as those who could be targeted for, quote, perpetual slavery. The papal bull intentionally used language that identified those outside the European Christian world and enforced the Western theological imagination of non-Europeans as other. The Portuguese took these ecclesiastical statements to heart and perpetrated the slave trade from the African continent to the European and the American continents. As a Christian ruler, the King of Portugal would have power endowed from the church to take possession of the other as slave labor from the continent of Africa. The pagan African body was just another commodity to be taken for the pleasure and profit of the European Christian body, the one made most fully in the image of God. In the January of 1454, Pope Nicholas authored another bull. The book is Unsettling Truths by Charles and Ra.
Thom Hartmann program to all of you. Happy holidays, and thanks for listening.
So have you noticed that the Republicans are pretty much not talking about a constitutional convention anymore? They used to be gung-ho to rewrite the Constitution. You know, they wanted to put corporate personhood in there. They wanted to change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these weird, they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. I mean, they're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, you know, their ultimate talking document does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. I mean, you know, just they have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the 1st, 4th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out. Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. So this is from Midas Touch Network. They said reporting earlier this year revealed that thousands of FBI and Department of Justice personnel were reassigned to work on redactions tied to the Epstein files. This is a comment on what we can expect to see when these things get released today, right? Or at least a small portion of them get released today. Between January and July alone, FBI staff logged more than 4,700 hours of overtime on this project. Nearly 70% of that overtime occurred in March. Separate reporting showed close to $1 million in overtime costs for a single 5-day period in that same month. This suggests a scramble to scrub, conceal, and shield powerful figures, including the president himself and his wealthy associates. Amazing. The other, just a quick note, on Sunday, this weekend, Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, what is that, 7 a.m. Pacific Time? I will be on Ali Velshi's show, Internet Gods Willing. I mean, sometimes big news bumps you and all that kind of stuff, but they just confirmed it today. So if you are watching, that'll be on MS Now at 10 a.m. Sunday morning Eastern Time. So what's on your mind today? Norm in Deerfield, Illinois. Hey, Norm, what's up?
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
I am fine, and I can hear you just great, Norm.
Okay. Oh, great. So I just had one point or some small points to make about the cost of healthcare, and absolutely tragic. What's going to happen to so many people who need healthcare insurance? I think that's the cost of premium. I think is one issue, but also underlying that is the cost of the actual care. And I think that the huge tragedy, in my view, is that that's not been addressed for the longest time, and the costs have allowed to escalate without really any plan to fix that part of it. And I think that there are so many people who are at fault. Of course, everybody immediately jumps on big pharma and the cost of the biologics, but in addition, the cost embedded in hospital systems. There's a whole host of problems, and there are solutions to those problems. If there was a will, there are brilliant people in healthcare who could solve problems holistically or in silos. I don't think it really matters how it's approached, but we ignore that, and I think that's as big a tragedy as this premium shock that's going to come up in January.
I agree with you. Well, finish your thought, and then I'll share mine.
The other thing is we could not have a worse, more incompetent HHS secretary and the surrounding cast of characters than what we have now. And the rise in these once vaccine preventable diseases is also going to be a big cost driver over the next 5 years, I suspect.
Yeah.
I pray not, but I suspect
no,
it is.
It's inevitable, Norm. It's absolutely inevitable, and what we're seeing is the absolute stupidity of putting a heroin-addicted, sex-addicted, brain-worm-damaged lawyer in charge of our health system rather than a physician. And we have seen the cost of health care in the United States, not insurance, but health care itself, has gone up more than 20% just since 2020, just in the last 5 years. And what we're seeing, my doctor's practice, for example, or what my ex-doctor, was bought out by a New York hedge fund. And and it's a large practice. It had 3 offices here in the city. And
Summit Medical, I bet.
No, it wasn't. It was another one. I don't want to name them, but
okay. No, that's okay.
But these people are buying them left and right. I mean, it's like, and what do? They jack up the prices, and they lay off, half the staff, suck them dry, and the hospitals are being consolidated. The independent rural hospitals are going out of business. You're seeing, the hedge funds getting into this in a big way. The insurance companies, of course, $74 billion in profits last year. Billions of dollars in bonuses and salaries to the senior executives, all of that an absolute unnecessary expense to all of us. So we need a nonprofit, single-payer national healthcare system, and we need to go back to the days when we were enforcing the anti-monopoly laws, when hospitals, physician practices, and insurance companies were required by law to be nonprofit entities, and that's the way it was back. My first business experience, significant business experience, was in 1973, and I started an herbal tea company. We ended up with 18 people working in our little factory, bagging up bags of tea and shipping them around the country. And we were able to buy health insurance for all of them, because at that time in Michigan, Blue Cross Blue Shield was a nonprofit. All 3 hospitals in Michigan were nonprofit. All the doctors' practices were small businesses or nonprofits. And, it was cheap. My recollection is we paid $35 a month for health insurance for each one of our employees. Now, my memory might be off a little. It might have been a little more than that, but it was in that neighborhood. So.
Yeah, I've been in healthcare for a long time as a physician. and initially was working for a very large hospital system in a medical director capacity, also practicing. And I've seen over the course of, and I'm not doing it anymore, I started a little baby practice in Florida. But what we saw was an incredible, as the consolidation hit, an incredible buildup of administrative costs with multiple layers of bureaucracy being put in place. And that just seemed to never end. As you said, the costs, I think, were 20, 30 years ago were $3,600 per person per year, and now I think we're up to $13,000 or $14,000.
Yeah.
And it just isn't sustainable. So I hope somebody has the courage and the guts to begin to approach a fix, because this is not sustainable.
I absolutely agree, and it's we have 20 million uninsured people in the United States. You got 24 million who are getting hit with these Affordable Care Act premium increases. Probably half of all the people in America on insurance are underinsured. Arguably more than that. When you've got 18% denial of service rates just in Medicare Advantage alone, it's just the whole system has been hijacked. We spend 21% of our GDP, 17% of GDP on health costs here in the United States. In Canada and most of Europe, it's between 9 and 11%. The rest of the world is looking at us going, you guys are nuts. And it's not that we're nuts. It's that 5 corrupt Republicans on the Supreme Court said it is legal for corporations and billionaires to buy and bribe judges and politicians. And ever since they said that, we've seen these. And then, in '83, Reagan stopped enforcing the Sherman Antitrust Act, and also stopped enforcing the law that made it a crime to do stock buybacks. So suddenly it became very profitable for these big corporations. And then throughout the '80s, following the Reagan Revolution, state after state, including Michigan, where I used to live and where I had that first business I was telling you about, stopped requiring physician practices, hospitals, and insurance companies from being nonprofits or operating as small businesses. Norm, I got to run, but thank you for bringing this up.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Happy holidays to you and your family. Yeah, thanks. Jerry in Tampa, Florida. Hey, Jerry, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Well, first of all, I want to wish you and your family and everybody at the Sirius XM I listen to all day happy holidays, and your vacations. You've earned them.
Well, thank you.
You've kept us more informed, as far as I'm concerned, than corporate media does. In fact, I don't know if you plan on reading Olivia Newsy's book. I'm not going to, but I did read a review about it. The review, one thing that I'll never forget, it said, this book has a lot of scenes, but little substance. To me, that's what the for-profit media has now. A lot of scenes, but little substance.
Yeah, well said. No, I don't plan to read the book, but I have been reading, I subscribe to Ryan Liz's Substack newsletter, and I've been reading his blow by blow. It's pretty grim.
Wow, Bonfire of the Vanities, huh?
Yeah, it really is. Tom Wolfe could have made it into a novel. Yep.
Here's my question for you. I understand what Greg Palast and everybody else is writing about. There's no doubt in my mind there is some voter manipulation going on. Years ago, I picked up a book by Hugh Hewitt, of all people, and frankly, the only thing that's worth remembering is the title. It says, if it isn't close, then they can't cheat. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is, if you had to pick one major reason that the Democratic Party lost both houses of Congress and the presidency in 2024, what would it be, and what does the messaging need to be now in the midterms?
Yeah.
Because I was discussing all this stuff with my wife, and she says, honey, most people don't educate themselves before they go and vote.
Yeah.
So
here's why Democrats lost. Over 4 million people who were legal citizens and registered voters were prevented from voting or had their vote not counted even after they cast it in that election. Greg Palast documented this using the actual statistics from the federal government and from the individual states. 4.2 million people. You have states that are purging literally millions of people off the voting rolls. Principally, this is mostly happening in red states, but they're purging people in the blue cities in those red states. This was legalized when John Husted was doing this, the Secretary of State in Ohio, back in 2019, I think it was, and the Supreme Court said, okay, that's just fine, you can do that now. And so they're just, it's gone on steroids. Yeah, they're probably going to purge 10 million people from the voting rolls, over the next 12 months. I mean, this is very active stuff. And then they've got these people who challenge your mail-in votes and say, oh, that signature doesn't look like it matches to me. You've got Republicans at all of the counting stations doing this. And between those two things, 4.2 million people, their vote didn't count, and the vast majority of them were black and brown people.
All right. So the question then becomes, on a two-front war. One, how does the average person or average people like us fight that voter
Go to vote.org and double-check your voter registration every month, if you live in a red state, for sure.
Okay, so, yeah.
And in
so
terms of
what do you
messaging,
think the message should be?
all of these purges are justified by this Republican lie that they started pitching in the 1960s with Operation Eagle Eye, that there are illegal immigrants who are voting. It is simply not true, and we need to call it out as a lie. Jerry, I got to run, but thanks for the call. 47 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Exposing the con in conservative. I'll be right back with your call. Stay with us. And welcome back. John in Minneapolis. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
I wanted to talk about media and particularly social media. I think that the liar in chief gets the free rein with media, and people just imitate that on social media, and they produce, like my own congresswoman, to the point where, it's just libelous, really, when you think of it. I would be afraid to say the kind of things that they do because, they're just simply untrue, and they've been proven untrue by different fact-check organizations, and yet it just keeps resurfacing. So I think that I'm not for censorship of social media, but I do think that they need to, fact-check when something is so obviously untrue and edit out those comments. But I don't know how you think about that, but I was wondering what your opinion is. I'm really grateful for your show and for Free Speech TV. I try to support all truly independent media, and I think everybody should. It's one of the most important things to do besides being involved in politics, which I am. So anyway, I just was wondering what your opinion is about that.
I think with social media, the big challenge is the algorithm and the fact that they have no liability for criminal or illegal or immoral activity on their platforms. And the solution is real simple. Roll back Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act so that Facebook has the same liability that the New York Times does if they publish something, number one.
Right.
And number two, require them to publish their algorithms. Make the algorithms open source. They must be publicly available. We must know, what they're doing and how they're doing it. If the algorithm says that liberal content gets suppressed by 60% and conservative content gets promoted by 200%, we have a right to know that.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that is the case,
It very much is the case. Not necessarily those percentages, but on both Facebook and X, that's absolutely the case. Is what's going on? Is that liberal content is? In fact, the op-ed I published yesterday or the day before yesterday, I had 3 emails from people saying that they tried to post on Facebook and it got censored for violating community standards.
Yep, I've had that happen also. And I think there's a tremendous amount of money, put into different organizations to push like bots. And then also, I think they pay people to make comments, but that's just me. I might be.
Well, Putin pays people to make comments. There was that brief little window there where Elon Musk was letting us know the location of the people who were posting. And it got very embarrassing because what we discovered was the vast majority or a large chunk of the Republican, and I put that in scare quotes, posts were coming out of, countries associated with Russia, former Eastern European countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, obviously paid shills, all of them. And who are people who are fluent in English and just pretending to be Americans. And, and so he stopped doing it. Well, you can't see where people are anymore. I mean, it was like it reflected very, very, and you weren't seeing that, by the way, with the people who are engaging in progressive and democratic content. John, I got to run, but happy holidays to you and your family. I appreciate you having been a long-time listener, and thank you for calling in and watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back, 51 minutes past the hour. Back with you in a minute. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Did you know that the ancient Roman Republic, which for 480 years was actually a democratic republic before Julius Caesar kind of ended the democracy phase and replaced it with the autocracy phase, that they were brought down by a very small group of very rich people. The richest man in ancient Rome was Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was the richest guy, the billionaire of Rome. And he frankly hated the Roman free bread for all welfare system. It was being paid for with his tax dollars, after all. So him and Pompey the Great and a few other rich guys got together, and they basically crashed Rome. They turned it into an oligarchy and then into a tyranny. And the parallels to what Trump is doing right now are absolutely shocking. There's an article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled American Caesar, Trump's Path to Power Mirrors Rome's Darkest Days. Check it out.
They say tone it down while the fire's still burning. One side's preaching hate, the other's still learning. False balance feeds the flames, we all know the plan. Democracy's breaking on the both sides scam.
53 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls. Paul in Tonasket, Washington. Am I saying it right?
Tonasket.
Tonasket. Okay. What's up, Paul?
Number one, did it ever occur to you the strange coincidence that Republicans only bitch about budget overruns when there's a Republican or a Democratic president, and not a word about the budget when it's a Republican president?
In 1976, in the Wall Street Journal, Republican strategist Jude Wanniski published a piece called The Two Santa Claus Theory. And what he said was that when the Democrats have always been viewed by Americans as Santa Claus. This is why they keep getting elected. They brought us Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, unions, everything else. And Republicans opposed all those things. Republicans are seen as Grinches. And so, number one, Republicans had to become Santa Clauses, and they had to figure out a way to become Santa Clauses, and tax cuts are the way to do it. And number two, when a Democrat is in office, you have to force them to shoot their own Santa. Well, how do you do that? Well, when you get a Republican in office, you spend like crazy, which stimulates the economy, makes people think that Republicans know how to run a good economy, and it runs up the national debt. Then when a Democrat comes into office, you squeal about the national debt and demand that they cut back on their social spending. And that's exactly what they've been doing. It started with Ronald Reagan. When he came into office, the national debt was only $800 billion. He took it up to $2.4 trillion. He quadrupled the national debt, or tripled the national debt. And now it's $38 trillion, and 100% of that is attributable to the Reagan tax cuts, the two Bush tax cuts, and the two Trump tax cuts. This is called the two Santa Claus strategy, and they've been following it religiously.
Anyway, what I was calling about was you're calling Republicans conservatives, and Republicans are not conservative. Conservatives says they resist change. Republicans are radical reactionaries.
Yep.
They want to turn the clock back to probably, 1880?
Yep.
Because Trump wants to repeal the income tax and try to fund the government on
tariffs.
Yep. And of course, they want to get rid of all of the legal controls over what business can do, and return us back to laissez-faire economic.
Yep. Yeah, it's so wrong.
And people don't realize that was the time when if you worked, you probably worked in a company town, in company housing, your pay was in company paper money, good only at the company store. And essentially you were a wage slave, as Marx put it, or just about a white slave in modern terms.
The American middle class, as a percentage of the population, never went above 20% until the 1930s when Franklin Roosevelt rolled out the New Deal. And then it slowly went up until after World War II, until the end of World War II. And after World War II, because of unionization, by the time Ronald Reagan came into office, 2/3 of us were in the middle class. We're down to 43% now. The mission that Reagan was given when he came into office was to reduce the middle class, and that's what 44 years of Reaganomics has done. And they were explicit about it. They thought that the middle class was a danger to democracy. Paul, I got to run, but thanks for the call, and happy holidays to you and your family. We'll be back on the other side of the break. How strange is it that the Republicans decided with this health care situation this week to walk right up to the edge of the cliff and then jump over it? How's that going to work out for them? Let's talk about that after the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The agriculture.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Hidden History of American Healthcare: Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich by me. I wrote this book. This is from the introduction, the title, How a Single-Payer Healthcare Systems Help Stop COVID-19. Healthcare systems can be national security systems. Just ask anyone from Taiwan. From January 20th, 2020, the United States, or on January 20, 2020, the United States recorded its first known case of COVID-19 infection. The following day, Taiwan got their first one too. By the end of April, over 1 million Americans were infected with the virus. But Taiwan had recorded only 388 infections, and their last case of local transmission was on April 12th. A few had arrived on aircraft from other countries. All were contained by quarantine. As of this writing in September 2020, there hadn't been a single new case or a single death in Taiwan since April. The economy never shut down, and as of this writing, was projected to have grown nearly 2% in 2020. Business, restaurants, theaters, and sports events were all open. Life was back to normal, albeit a mask-wearing normal. And it was made possible by their national single-payer healthcare system and their citizens' willingness to do their bit for the collective good. Back in the 1980s, Taiwan was on the edge of moving toward a democracy after a military coup in the 1960s. And about 40% of Taiwanese families did not have health insurance. If somebody in a family got sick, the cost of care often wiped out that family, and demands for reform were loud across the nation. Yue Reinhardt was a German-born healthcare economist married to a Taiwanese woman, and he attended a conference on healthcare in Taipei in 1989. His presentation impressed representatives of the government in attendance, and while he was still in town for the conference, they asked him for his best suggestion for a national healthcare system. He and his wife went back to their hotel and discussed the issue in depth, finally deciding that a single-payer national system would be the most cost-effective, efficient, and comprehensive program possible. He shared his thoughts with the government representatives, and the next day he left Taiwan to go back to Princeton, where he was an economic professor. 6 months later, though, a representative of Taiwan's government called him to say that they were going to take up his suggestion and asked him to help craft their health care program. He enthusiastically agreed, and by 1995, Taiwan had instituted one of the world's best single-payer health care systems. Today, everybody in Taiwan is fully covered for doctor and hospital services. Everybody has a driver's license-like health care card, which accesses their entire medical history. They can book a doctor's appointment on any computer terminal in the country, and the entire cost of the system is a bit more than 6% of Taiwan's GDP. For comparison, in the United States, healthcare consumes 24% of our GDP, because there is no insurance company intermediaries sucking profits off the system in Taiwan. When COVID-19 hit, Taiwan chose not to use the blunt force technique of shutting down their economy and locking people in. Instead, they took on the coronavirus with an aggressive nationwide test and contact trace program tied into the National Health Service database. Every infected person was identified and put into a comfortable quarantine, and every person he or she had come into contact with, even very marginal contacts, were also tested and their contacts traced. By April, just a bit more than 2 months after the first case surfaced, the country had the coronavirus isolated and completely under control. By quarantining inbound visitors to the nation island of 23 million, they were able, as of this writing, to keep it that way. Maintaining public health is one of the most important functions of any nation's healthcare system. Because America's is so fragmented, it's inconceivable that our nation could respond to an epidemic, a pandemic, or another public health disaster with the speed and elegance of Taiwan or any of the world's other nations with single-payer Medicare for all types of systems. It's like Stockholm Syndrome, a friend who's a psychotherapist said, describing the way that Americans have clung for more than 5 generations to a for-profit health insurance system, while the rest of the world figured out how to provide health care to all their citizens at a much lower price. People know it and have become familiar with it, she added. They just can't imagine anything else. It's probably the largest con job ever perpetrated on the American people, one that has cost trillions of dollars and millions of lives. It's been going on since the 1940s. If it were a scientific experiment, it would have been shut down by the ethics review panels generations ago. This experiment in providing health care via a for-profit insurance system has led to the deaths of more Americans than we lost in World War II. Every year, over 500,000 Americans go bankrupt, often losing everything they've worked their entire lives for because somebody in their family got sick. That's 500,000 families a year, every year, for the past few decades. And the coronavirus, of course, has only made things worse. Perhaps most galling, this massive ripoff is costing our entire nation and each of us individually a fortune. Insurance premiums right now make up 22% of all taxable payroll, well above what the cost of Medicare for all would be at around 14% when first put into place, dropping down to around 10% within a few years as previously uninsured people get their health needs up to date. As the health insurance, drug, and hospital parasites push their suckers deeper and deeper into our body politic, spending on health care by Americans went up 25% between 2000 and 2014. The book, The Hidden History of American Health Care by Thom Hartmann.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the third hour of our program. Just a reminder, I'll be on Ali Velsh's show on MS Now Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. It's just strange, says Republican Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota. He's trying to figure it out. He sits on the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, and which peripherally involves health care. And he's looking at his colleagues, and they're like, yeah, let's raise the cost of health care for 24 million Americans. Let's double or triple the premiums that they're going to pay to the insurance company. Let's just do that. By the way, the total cost to extend those subsidies is less than the amount of money that Donald Trump sent to Argentina to help out Milei with his election. I mean, it's astonishing. And it appears that they're shooting themselves in the foot. Now, maybe they think that the time to fund the subsidies is like next August or September, so that it'll be in time for next November's election. We all know that Donald Trump wants to send out $2,000 checks to everybody. He started out at $5,000, now it's down at $2,000, next October, just in time for the November election. His so-called tariff dividend checks. He lied yesterday, or night before last, about how he's sending $1,776 to every soldier. No, that was appropriated by Congress in June, and it's money that is going to housing for the soldiers. But this is just very strange. Mike Rounds, the senator from South Dakota, says it's just strange. He says, we had the vote last week, and now the House passed its own measure, and we're going to have a vote. And, of course, that's not going to go anywhere. There could have been a one-year extension. Maybe there was a chance to have enough votes. We need 60 votes. I want to vote on something that can actually pass, and I don't know why that's not our plan. Well, Mike, Senator Rounds, let me explain it to you. In 1976, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a case called Buckley versus Vallejo, William F. Buckley's brother James Buckley, wanted to run for the United States Senate, and he wanted to fund his own campaign, which was a violation of the campaign finance laws. And so he sued and took it to the Supreme Court and said, I should be able to fund my own campaign, and that my ability to speak to my voters is facilitated by my money. The guy's a very wealthy family, the Buckley family. And therefore, my money is my speech. And the Supreme Court went along with him in a 5-4 decision, Buckley versus Vallejo. 2 years later, in 1978, the First National Bank of Boston wanted to defy a Massachusetts law that said that corporations in Massachusetts could not put money into political campaigns or issues unless they directly affected that corporation's business. But the First National Bank of Boston at that time was being run by a bunch of ideologues who wanted to see a ballot measure outlawing abortion in Massachusetts. And so they funded this effort. The Attorney General of Massachusetts, Frank Bellotti, sued them. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court. The name of the case, the full name of the case is First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti. It's sometimes simply referred to as the Bellotti decision. And in 1978, the Supreme Court, 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court, in a decision that was written by Lewis Powell, the guy who authored the Powell Memo in 1971, and it was put on the court in 1972 or at the end of 71 by Richard Nixon. Lewis Powell wrote this decision that said, well, we examined this back in 1886 and we determined that corporations are persons. And if corporations are persons, then they have First Amendment rights. And if they have First Amendment rights, they have the right to free speech. And if this court ruled 2 years earlier that free speech means money, then they have the right to spend money on whatever they want. And that opened the door. That opened the door for the oil industry to flood the American media in 1980 with advertising on behalf of Ronald Reagan. Reagan came into office based on treason. He had cut a deal with the Iranians to hold the hostages to make Jimmy Carter look weak and ineffectual, and massive advertising from industry, particularly the oil industry, behind Ronald Reagan. And that began this process that culminated with Citizens United in 2010, where the Supreme Court tripled down on this and blew up over 1,000 good government and money in politics laws, some of them dating back to 1907, the Tillman Act, all the way back to then, some of them dating back to the late 1800s. So most of them state laws, but some federal laws, with Citizens United, and just turned it into the Wild West. And so who stepped into this? Well, again, this started in 76, 78, and the Powell Memo was 71. What happened in the late 70s, early 80s? The Koch brothers funded the Charles Koch Institute, which became the Cato Institute, or the Charles Koch Foundation became the Cato Institute, the Heritage Foundation, the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I mean, it was just a whole bunch of these right-wing think tanks were funded by right-wing billionaires or big corporations. The Libertarian Party had been created back in the 50s by the real estate lobby to have a political a voice in politics, to say that we shouldn't have rent control. And the Libertarian Party by the 70s and 80s had been taken over by these same billionaires. In fact, in 1980, the election in 1980, when Reagan was on the ticket, so was David Koch. He ran for vice president on the Libertarian ticket. The Libertarian Party heavily funded then by David Koch. And so basically this cabal of billionaires and giant corporations took over America because the Supreme Court opened the door. The Supreme Court opens the door and the billionaires and the corporations said, yeah, we'll just walk right through. So then the question becomes, well, what do the billionaires want? And I can tell you what they don't want is they don't want to pay their damn taxes, which is why the average billionaire in America is paying about 1.5% to 3% income taxes compared to you and me. And if they're not going to pay their taxes, well, what happens? Well, if you have social services, those get tacked out of the national debt. This is why our national debt is now $38 trillion. And it's why Republicans constantly say, well, we've got to do something about the national debt. We've got to cut these social programs, because they don't want to raise taxes on the billionaires. So back to Mike Round's question, it's just strange. Why are we not voting on extending these subsidies for the Affordable Care Act? The answer is very simple. Right-wing billionaires don't want to pay their taxes, and they own the Republican Party, and so they have instructed Republican politicians, do not spend any more money, because eventually they're just going to have to raise our taxes to pay down this national debt that you guys are running up, and we don't think that government should be paying for people's health care at all. They want to take us back to the 1880s. So, Mike, talk to your friendly local billionaire. You'll figure out why the GOP is not funding health care. And it's not even health care for all, the Affordable Care Act. I mean, it was originally conceived that way, but again, the Supreme Court said, no, you can't mandate it. You can't force people to sign up for it. The Supreme Court blew 3 big holes that I can remember in the Affordable Care Act. And then, of course, Joe Lieberman screwed us all when he said, no, you can't have a public option. So here we are. We need single-payer health care. We need it desperately. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with your calls in just a moment. What's on your mind? It's Anything Goes Weekend. And welcome back. The QR code on your screen, by the way, if you just point your cell phone at it, your camera, and a little URL pop up, you tap that and it'll open your browser and it'll take you right to a questionnaire. This is not a fundraising thing. You won't even be asked for money at the end of it like you are when you answer Donald Trump's questionnaires. It's just a questionnaire where Free Speech TV is trying to figure out from their listeners, trying to hear from their listeners, what are you watching? Why are you watching it? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? How are we doing our job? And it's an end-of-year thing, and I would personally appreciate it if you would fill out the survey and Free Speech TV's management would certainly appreciate. I guess I would appreciate it on their behalf because, they're going to be looking at it, not me. So anyway, picking up your calls here. Brett, you're listening to a commercial station. Hang on, let me put you back on hold, and I'll pick you up in a minute on the other side here. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry, what's on your mind today?
Hi. The reason why Harris is not president right now is because George Stephanopoulos decided he would focus on Joe Biden being old after that debate where he was sick, and he ignored the 130 lies that Donald Trump told during that debate. And that kind of gave us a situation where now it doesn't matter if you win the debate. I actually think Joe Biden won that debate.
Yeah,
I
did too.
Agree with giving a liar a debate victory.
Yeah.
And so George Stephanopoulos decided he was going to go after Joe Biden's age because Joe Biden doesn't have a comeback for that. Yeah, he's old. And he could have spent that hour or whatever it was just trashing Donald Trump and all of the lies he told. But no, that would have made it more likely that Joe Biden or Harris would become president. So he did what was necessary to knock the Democrats out of the race.
Yeah.
And then the Fed chair. The Fed chair did that massive quantitative tightening when Joe Biden was president, and caused the stock market to flutter. Every time the stock market is having trouble during an election, the guys in power
the incumbents
have
lose.
a miserable time.
Yep.
They have a miserable time trying to extend their stay in the White House. And then, of course, you had the Saudis and the Russians driving up the price of crude.
And you had Elon Musk pouring $250 million into the thing.
Pardon?
And you had Elon Musk putting $250 million into the campaign in advertising and biasing the X algorithm.
Yeah, that's the billionaires doing their part also. And then you had Bloomberg talking about Joe Biden had 100% chance, that's not even a thing, 100% chance that he was going to have a recession. Right now, Donald Trump is closer to a recession than Joe Biden ever was.
Yeah.
If he has one more month of losses in jobs, if it's a big number, there's a very good chance that the NBER is going to
declare a recession in January. Yeah.
Declare a recession.
Yep, I agree with you. Larry, I always appreciate your analysis. And I wanted to wish you very happy holidays. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season.
You too.
Thank you very much. And thanks for listening and for calling in. We appreciate you. 19 minutes past the hour. We'll be back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Donald Trump lost, voter suppression won in 2024. That's the headline over at HartmannReport.com, and just a brilliant article written by Greg Palast, exclusively for the Hartman Report. He writes, Trump lost. That is, if all legal voters were allowed to vote, if all legal ballots were counted, Trump would have lost the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Vice President Kamala Harris would have won the presidency with 286 electoral votes. And if not for the mass purge of voters of color, if not for the mass disqualification of provisional and mail-in ballots, if not for the new mass vigilante challenges in swing states, Harris would have gained at least another 3.5 million votes, topping Trump's popular vote tally by 1.2 million. Greg brings us the numbers. He lays it out. You can read it over at HartmannReport.com, absolutely free. It's titled Trump Lost, Vote Suppression Won at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
Dear MAGA, you raised your fist so high, screaming justice as the tear gas filled the sky. You wore your cap, stood proud in that hall while your Messiah hid behind gold-plated walls. He told you he'd save the kids in chains, but he flew first class to Epstein's planes. While you feared basements that don't exist, he was soaking in spaz with a teenage guest list. You stormed the Capitol for a man who knew damn well where those jet wheels ran. He said, protect the girls from evil's hand, then drank with the monster on his private land. You believed he'd end the child abuse, but he was toasting with the ones who cut them loose.
21 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here, Jeff in Portland. And I'm going to get to Brett next. Jeff, what's on your mind today? Apologies, Brett.
Hey, happy Friday and happy holidays, Tom. First, I want to express my profound gratitude for what you and this show do every day. I really believe all the truth, knowledge, and wisdom emanating from this program sends out what RFK, Bobby Kennedy Sr., once said are the tiny ripples of hope. And he believed those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest wall of oppression and resistance. So thank you, Tom and Louise and your crew and all my fellow callers. Let's build a big blue wave next year with those tiny ripples. And Tom, in reference to your Hartmann report today, and really what you've been talking about for the last couple months, I think the politics for the Democrats should be pretty simple. Here's our new deal for a new century. We're the party that wants every American to live long and prosper, to live a life of dignity, because in the richest country in the world, no one should be hungry, homeless, or without access to health care and medicine. And in contrast to that, the Republican Party, it's the party of unadulterated greed and death. If you're not rich, they want you to get sick and die quick. Tip of the hat for Taylor and Grayson for that.
Yep.
And there's nothing more emblematic of that, Tom, than Trump and Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, destroying USAID, cutting off food and medicine to the poorest people in the world, which has already killed 600,000 people, many of them kids.
Yep.
And what they've done to the world's poorest, they're looking to do to the rest of us here in America. Cutting off SNAP benefits, cutting off access to Obamacare and health care. So your thoughts, Tom?
I think your analysis is absolutely brilliant, Jeff, and I don't have anything to add to it. It's
well the only logical conclusion to what their policies are.
Yeah.
I mean,
the only thing they care about is tax cuts for billionaires and giant corporations. That's it.
Yeah, and you give us hope every day, Tom, because as Bernie said, and you like to say, despair is not an option. So
there you go.
Like I say, I can't thank you enough and your crew for what you guys do.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
Happy holidays and
thanks.
Take care.
Thanks. Back at you. Jeff, appreciate the call. Always nice hearing from you. Thank you. Happy holidays to you and your family, too. Brett in Milwaukee. Hey, Brett, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Well, first of all, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Thank you. Back at you.
Before I get into my rant about my disagreement with your gun rant, I want to let you know I've been listening to you for like 20 years. This is the first time I've ever called.
Well, thank you.
Figured I'd use to get in front of the line to disagree with you, but that didn't work today. No problems. Here's my problem with your gun analogy. First off, I totally agree that anybody who buys a gun, it should be registered immediately with the state. Mm-hmm. And when you sell that gun, it should be registered to the new owner. And I agree that everybody should be proficient in the gun they own. But other than that, the analogy to cars, I don't want to be offensive, it's a little lazy. Because here's the big problem. I have a gun in my house. I have a pistol. And I've owned guns all my life. I've been in the military. And that gun never goes anywhere. It's tucked away, loaded in my house.
Just the fact that it's in your house, though, Brett, increases by literally hundreds of percents the probability that somebody will be injured or killed in your home. And the reason why we have liability insurance for cars is because they are capable of killing people. And we should have them for guns too. Guns are designed to kill people.
let me finish. I understand that completely. You've educated us well, but the problem with bringing in an insurance company, number one, your car goes down the road every day. Your car is out in public. My gun hasn't been out of its hiding place since I moved into the new house.
Right, and the insurance company should be able to underwrite you. They should be able to say, okay, you don't carry your gun in public, and therefore we're going to give you a cheaper rate. You'll only pay $35 a year instead of $350.
Yeah, but if I own a car and it sits in a barn for 40 years waiting for me to rebuild it, I don't have to pay insurance on it.
No, insurance companies actually will prorate your insurance costs based on the mileage you drive. If you drive a lot, you pay more.
I understand
you can do the same thing with guns.
Well, the concept sounds good, but it really doesn't work in the fact that now I have a protected right to own a gun.
Well, I get that, Brett. Well, no, you have a right to own and to drive a car as well. Although it's not an unlimited right, like apparently the Supreme Court says is with guns. Brett, I'm sorry I'm out of time. I apologize, but I think you made your point very well. Thanks for the call.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with more of your calls on the other side of the break. It's Anything Goes Weekend. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Our book today. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Second, Race and Guns in a Fatally Unequal America by Carol Anderson. This is from the introduction. It was like a snuff film, that July 6th, 2016 live stream. Philando Castile sat in his car, buckled in, bleeding, dying. "Why did you shoot him, sir?" asked his fiancée, Diamond Reynolds, pain piercing her every word. Castile, who had been pulled over in a suburb of St. Paul, Minnesota, because his, quote, wide-set nose, end quote, supposedly resembled that of a robbery suspect, had been reaching for his ID, but in order to avoid any surprises, let the police officer know he had a gun with him, a legally permitted, right-to-carry concealed gun. That was all the cop needed to know. Officer Geronimo Yanez began shooting. Castile's death came just one day after Alton Sterling's down in Louisiana. He, too, was carrying a gun, which was not unusual in this right-to-carry state. Granted, Sterling had a felony conviction, so owning a firearm was, for him, illegal, but he had been robbed before and wanted protection. On July 5th, 2016, the Baton Rouge police received a 911 call that there was a man with a weapon threatening customers at a local convenience store. As officers rolled onto the scene, they saw Sterling sitting there selling CDs and DVDs, just as the store owner allowed him to do and indeed welcomed. The threatening man was not Sterling. In fact, there was no threatening man. It had been a prank call, but that didn't matter. Within a few minutes, police had thrown the black man down, pinned him to the asphalt, and then started yelling that Sterling had a gun. He did. It was in his pocket where he could hardly reach it, what with the officers squatting on both his legs and one arm. Nevertheless, the police began firing round after round into his prone body, point blank. Blood poured out of his chest, but not for long. Alton Sterling was dead. The back-to-back deaths of these two black men police had shot for carrying guns should have jolted into action the Second Amendment's staunchest advocate, the National Rifle Association. In 1995, for example, the organization's denunciations flew fast and furious when it contended that law enforcement not only overreacted, but went out of its way to kill gun owners. Angered by the deaths at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas, and the siege and firefight at Ruby Ridge, Idaho, both of which were sparked by federal agents serving warrants for weapons violations, Wayne LaPierre, the NRA's executive vice president, angrily wrote, quote, "If you have a badge, you have the government's go-ahead to harass, intimidate, and even murder law-abiding citizens," end quote. He further denounced cops as, quote, jackbooted government thugs who have more power to take away our constitutional rights, break in our doors, seize our guns, destroy our property, and even injure or kill us. Nearly 2 decades later, that sentiment had not changed. This was evident when Nevada rancher Pam Bondi, who had refused to pay over $1 million in fees for grazing his cattle on public land, summoned his gun-toting, self-styled militiamen to do battle with federal authorities to prevent the seizure of his herd for restitution. Richard Mack, a former recipient of the NRA's Law Enforcement Officer of the Year award, asserted, "If federal agents are going to start killing people, I'm sorry, but to show the world how ruthless these people are, women and children need to be placed in the front lines as human shields." Mack didn't flinch as he insisted, quote, "Women need to be the first ones shot. I would have put my own wife or daughter there on the front lines, and I would have been a screaming bloody murder to watch them die," end quote. Larry Pratt, a speaker at the NRA's 2014 National Convention, commenting on the fact that Bundy, quote, backed them, the Bureau of Land Management agents, down with automatic rifles and other deadly weaponry, proudly called that armed confrontation, quote, "a proper, legitimate, lawful response to illegitimate, unlawful exercise of government power, particularly on the federal level," end quote. Yet how quickly the NRA's swagger disappeared when government agents gunned down Philando Castile and Alton Sterling for merely carrying guns. Sterling's death didn't even merit acknowledgement. As for Castile, the NRA broke its silence only after inordinate pressure from African-American members led the gun manufacturers' lobby to issue a tepid statement that the Second Amendment was applicable, quote, regardless of race, religion, or sexual orientation. When pressed further by many of its members to stand up for Castile, the often fierce organization demurred, saying it was, quote, important for the NRA not to comment while the investigation is ongoing. This situational silence did not go unnoticed. The NRA had not only loudly defended the rights of those at the Branch Davidian cult and at Ruby Ridge, men who had actually shot and killed members of law enforcement, but the organization had also doubled down on calling for more guns in the face of mass shootings in a public school in Newtown, Connecticut, and a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. Yet here, the guardian of the Second Amendment was now deliberately ignoring the inconvenient fact that black men had been killed for merely possessing a firearm. Where's the NRA? Asked journalist Hannah Kozlowska. Didn't Sterling and Philando Castile have Second Amendment rights too? David Graham in The Atlantic coolly observed that, quote, two shootings give a strong sense that the Second Amendment does not apply to black Americans the same way it does to white Americans. Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson wrote that he saw the old Jim Crow whites only sign plastered above the Second Amendment.
From all of us here on the Thom Hartmann program to all of you, happy holidays, and thanks for listening.
When I was a little kid, my grandmother had a piano, and I loved to play it. I was incompetent, but I was figuring out all kinds of stuff. And then I kind of got away from it and, you know, went to school and things got busy and just lost track of it. Well, now there's this fascinating new study out of the University of Geneva, Switzerland, that is making me think maybe I should go back and learn the piano. What they found was that they took a group of 132 healthy older adults, retired, 62 to 78 years old. Half of them learned the piano, half of them took music classes without learning the piano. And what they found was that those who learned the piano actually had the strongest increase in their memory, in their mental competence, their mental faculties. Those who took the music classes also did well, but learning the piano was a huge step. So check it out. There's a whole video about it with all the details over at tom.tv. Welcome back, 35 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Alan in Seattle. Hey, Alan, what's on your mind today?
Oh, happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Tom.
Thank you. Back at you.
Thank you. Just wanted to give you the predictive markets on the Epstein file release. This would be from Kalshi and Polymarket. Mm-hmm. They've got an 83.6% chance that the Epstein files will be released by the end of day. On the Polymarket, they have an 87% chance. Now, mind you, there's rules as to what qualifies as, making this a yes. And
well, I would think that what does the word released mean? I mean, yes, they're going to release apparently a little over 100,000 documents, but there's apparently millions. I mean, if they said full release of all documents, I'm guessing it would be 5%.
Well, I would agree with you, because the key word in their rules for, balancing this as a yes or a no is that they release any new, previously unreleased information.
Oh, well, yeah, that's 100%. They're going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. If they're going to release, they're not going to release it all. That's a 5% chance. Yeah. So anyway, that's what the predictive market, and I guess that'll pay. But I don't know. Maybe bet on the the no side, and make some money.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Alan, thanks for the information, and happy holidays to you. Marilyn in Chicago. Hey, Marilyn, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to WCPT.
Hi. Oh, I love you, love your show. And I'm going to say that you have perfectly presented such important information, like about the Trump family corruption. I mean, the fact that they've made billions, and from what I understand, that's completely illegal to do as a president.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, he's breaking the law. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and it's pretty unambiguous. You shall not receive emoluments, which is gifts or benefits.
Right. I know. And what you said about, all the time about the importance of single-payer insurance, I agree with that. And I disagree with that previous caller, because I think your 3-point gun control ideas were brilliant.
Thank you.
And very credible. And also, the information about the voter suppression in the last election that Greg Palast has, wonderfully explained, that really hurt Kamala Harris. I just don't understand why the Democrats have not taken any of this information to any courts.
I share your befuddlement, Marilyn. I absolutely agree.
I don't understand that. And, and then the presidential plaques. I mean, I can't believe the White House press secretary, Caroline Levitt, she was smiling, and she said that they were an eloquent description of each president's legacy, and many were written by the president himself.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's pathetic.
So I wonder why the Democrats don't know how to just completely share. They should be both standing in the floor of the House and the Senate and standing up and saying, we are not going to leave until you look at and examine all of these things.
Yeah.
Because that's why they have an 18% approval rating. And I'm amongst those people that don't approve of what they're doing at all. Because, I'm a lifelong, Democrat, and I think what they're doing is, imagine if Barack Obama would have done that to the plaques in the White House, what they would have done to him.
Yeah, Ken Martin is not the guy, apparently.
Right, yeah, right?
We should have gotten the guy from Wisconsin. We should have gotten Ben Wickler.
Right. But, and also, CBS previously has done a really good, extensive investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's supposed suicide. They presented so many inconsistencies in the report. And, they talked about Epstein's own brother says he didn't commit suicide.
Yeah.
And again, we've virtually not covered this
Trump was
at
president
all.
when he died in the prison. I mean, this was,
right.
Wink and a nod here is all it took, or would take,
right.
shall we say. I can't assert, for sure, but
right.
I don't believe he's committed suicide.
I know, they got rid of his roommate suddenly. He went just earlier that day. No new roommate was assigned to him.
Turn off the camera.
Turned off just happened to be those 2 minutes.
Right, and the guards just happened to be asleep or someplace else or what. Yeah, it's just too many coincidences stacking up. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right, and I would just, love you to ask Ro Khanna, what are you guys going to do more? Yeah. Because, the Republicans approve of the Republican Party by 42% when they have that nut job there. Yeah. And our approval rating is only 18 because Democrats like myself are really disappointed that we're not, taking these issues more seriously and doing something about it.
I'm wondering, Marilyn, if the analysis that the party did, that they're refusing to release now, showed that the American electorate wants FDR, LBJ, Bernie Sanders, aggressive progressivism, and the corporate forces within the party are saying we can't say this publicly. And it's just a guess.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I have no inside information here, but I would love to know. Marilyn, I need to move along, but thank you for the call and happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you also, Tom. Thank you again for all you do.
Marilyn. Sure enough. Holly in Washington, D.C. Hey, Holly, what's on your mind today?
Hey, happy holidays to you and everybody listening.
You too.
So I get a slight, quite an annoyance every time I hear the statement that we're the richest country in the world. And I have business background, and I know the difference between an income statement and a balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you got to have a global common metric to compare one to the other, which I'm assuming is gross national product. But I just don't know how you can have more debt than assets. 60% of the population doesn't have $400 for an emergency. Highest childhood rate poverty, and make that claim. So help me.
It's
reduce my annoyance.
when they say we're the richest country in the world, they're talking about total wealth, and that would be all the wealth that's held by the American corporations and by all those rich people. And if you add that up, it's a staggering sum of money. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but when you add the total wealth of our country, it is greater than the total wealth of China, which has 3 times as many people. It's greater than the total wealth of Russia. It's greater than the total wealth of, I don't know if it's greater than the total wealth of the European Union. That would be a good question. It's greater than any individual country in the EU.
Yeah, I guess so. Then it's a matter of asset value.
Well, it's distribution.
Right?
It's distribution. You've got 4 guys right now, who they added $200 billion to their money bins just in the last 4 years. These 4 guys, money that could have entirely funded the Affordable Care Act. That could have, the ending childhood poverty in the United States is estimated to cost $25 billion. And Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and one other billionaire added $200 billion to their money bins. And what do they need it for? I mean, these guys are just insanely rich, and they're paying nothing in taxes and income taxes, while the rest of us are paying huge amounts in income taxes. And it's because they've just gamed the tax code. But that's how that wealth is calculated, and the reason why we have the widespread poverty and low wages and things in the United States is because, with a wink and the nod from corrupt Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court, particularly with the Bilotti and Citizens United decisions, which were all 100% Republican decisions, what we have now is an oligarchy. We've got a nation that is being run of, by, and for the rich, the morbidly rich. And we've got to do something about that. We were there before, by the way. This is where we were in the late 1920s. This is where we were in the late 1880s. And in both cases, we fought back. There was a reaction, a deep, strong, systemic, nationwide reaction. And I am predicting, Holly, the same thing is going to happen over the next 5 years. That we're going to see a major swing to the so-called left toward progressive politics. Because America's just sick of being of having rich men in a poor country, basically, or the rest of us being impoverished. Holly, I got to run. Happy holidays to you. Thank you for the call. 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I'll be right back with more of your calls. Stay tuned. And welcome back. Adam in Dallas, Texas. Hey, Adam, what's on your mind today?
Hey, first, let's test your sense of humor, Tom. What is the GOP's favorite Christmas song?
The Grinch?
No, I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you, Adam.
I've been traveling for so long. I haven't been able to call in for months, but I remember a few months ago, this is my top Thom Hartmann moment of the year. that interview with Michael Wolff, and just the look on your face when Michael Wolff was just acting like a complete jerk. Yeah. And it just, I liked it because it brought back a memory of mine when a few years ago I was driving through my neighborhood, and a few miles away there was a hotel, and they were advertising a UFO conference. And I don't believe one way or another in UFOs, but I just decided to check it out. Mm-hmm. And in this conference, there's the sellers area where they have like authors and people on TV and stuff that are selling books and things like that. And I came upon an author who researched UFOs and aliens from the ancient Sumerian culture. And I just started asking him questions, and he acted like Michael Wolff did with you. He's like, what, haven't you read any of my books? And you want me to explain this to you?
And now we find that Michael Wolff was in deep with Jeffrey Epstein, and it's looking weirder and weirder the more we learn.
Yeah, but that was my classic 2025 moment, and the look on your face was priceless.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
But anyways, I wanted to talk about, I think it was about 6 weeks ago, Trump announced tariffs against China, and just before the tariffs were announced, I think there's one person and maybe a few others that dumped or that shorted crypto because they were speculating that it was going to go down, and it sure enough dropped by 1/3 or like $40,000 per Bitcoin. Yeah. And someone made an estimated like $80 million off of it, and people were speculating that it was allegedly Barron Trump. And I was wondering, how come no one's mentioned this? And they consistently, these are the same people, the people who stayed silent are the same people that went tooth and nail after Hunter Biden.
Yeah, of course. Well, you know, they're very good at knowing how to game the system because they do it themselves. And when they see somebody that's on the other side doing it, they yell and squeal. I think it's amazing that, you know, the Trump family now has made billions of dollars on crypto, and I'm still predicting that this whole crypto thing is going to crash. I mean, you know, it's the Dutch tulip bulbs, it's the South Sea Island or South Sea stock bubble. I mean, it just is so obvious to me. There's nothing there. Right? It's a bunch of numbers on a computer someplace, and I get it. You can use it to buy drugs and prostitutes and things, but and so it kind of replaces money or barter as a medium of exchange for the moment. But this just seems crazy to me, Adam. It really does. Yeah. So, okay. Anyhow, I got to run. Adam, Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or Happy Hanukkah or whatever it is for you. I wish you Happy Kwanzaa. Wish you the best. Thanks a lot, Adam. 49 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in 1 minute. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. This is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s, and actually as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. But it was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out.
I saw Daddy kissing Santa Claus.
Isn't that a sweet song? 10 minutes, gay Santa, gay family. 10 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Patrick in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Hey, Patrick, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, and happy holidays to everybody there. And
thank you.
I heard something very interesting the other day, and this guy was talking about impeachment. And if the Democrats take the House, of course, they'll try to impeach him. But when they go to the Senate, he was suggesting that they could have a secret ballot to determine if they get enough votes to actually remove him from office. And I thought that was a very clever idea that the guy had, and I thought I'd run it past you.
Yeah, I don't think John Thune will allow that in the Senate, but I agree it would be a very good idea. And in fact, Mitt Romney made a comment to the effect of, had there been a secret ballot, there were at least 5 other Republicans who would have voted to impeach Trump the second time around.
Yeah, anyway, I thought it was a good idea because if the Democrats could take the Senate, then they could pass the rules, right? They could set the rule up for a secret ballot then.
Well, when they wrote that into the Constitution, the impeachment clause into the Constitution, they should have included that it was by secret ballot. I'm with you, Patrick. They didn't, and so it's not. And so we've got what we've got. But great idea, Patrick. Thank you for the call, and happy holidays. Okay. James in Hollywood. Hey, James, what's up?
Hey, ho, 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 Merry Christmas to you.
Back at you, James.
All your listeners. And I have 3 priceless gifts: happiness, hope, and health. Anyhow, for all your old dinosaur listeners that are so hot on the computer, get your pens out, because these are priceless gifts that you can give away. And the first one's just happiness. And that's ROCKELBEL version of the Canon in D by Pachelbel. And it's just 5 minutes and 28 seconds of happiness. Okay. And then I saw this amazing cure for Alzheimer's. Now, it's not proven. I even had Mateo look it up. And of course, Western medicine ain't going to say it works. But of all people, it was Ben Carson, who's also a Michigander graduate. I didn't like him much as a politician, but he's a brilliant neurosurgeon. And he spent years.
James, get right to it, please. I've got a couple more callers here that I want to get to.
It's a holistic cure for Alzheimer's. Just look up Ben Carson and there's
yeah, I'm not trusting anything that comes with Ben Carson. I'm sorry. James, happy holidays to you. MJ in Seattle. Hey, MJ, what's on your mind today?
Well, hello, Thom Hartmann. I sure enjoyed seeing you at Town Hall and having you sign my book, and it was wonderful. I wanted to talk about corruption being endemic in beauty pageants. And I was in a beauty pageant. I would have gone to the Miss Utah pageant, but I had a 4-point grade point average. I was doing it for the hell of it to kind of thumb my nose at beauty pageants and so on. There's a great movie about beauty pageants. I'm doing this. I'm talking about this because corruption is Donald Trump's.
Well, Trump used to own a beauty pageant for young girls, for teenagers.
The reason I'm talking about this is that it's corrupt.
Yeah.
This business about going in and looking at the girls, this kind of stuff is real. And it's using another human being who needs hope and to know that they're 17 or something. How is life going to go on? I already had a scholarship to go to state college. I was set, and I was in a real minority. I had no idea, hope that I was going to be the queen of the bell.
Yeah,
but,
no, I get it, MJ.
Anyway,
so do you think that Donald Trump was using his beauty pageants to feed girls to Jeffrey Epstein?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my fear too. MJ, thanks for weighing in, and happy holidays. I want to get one more caller in here before the end of the show. Sean in Detroit, Michigan. Hey, Sean, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Good.
Big fan.
I just wanted to say that I'm not like the other caller. I do agree with your car analogy. It's just I just want to point out some of the hidden dangers in that is that once something good, like you suggested, gets in the hands of the wrong white people, it usually spells something bad for black and brown communities because historically that those communities have been underinsured and overpriced for so many years with car insurance. And then the ultimate big bad of it is that to me, I'm scared that they may have tried to find some way to weasel in disarming black people and brown people in these neighborhoods because it's a way to circumvent.
Well, you'd want to write the law in a way that they can't use race as something in their underwriting.
Right. That's what I was getting to. If we can formulate some type of legislation where it prevents insurance companies from, because they'll use it's a private insurance company, they can do whatever they want.
I get it. Sean, I'm out of time. I'm sorry, but thank you and happy holidays to you and your family. And special thanks to Louise Hartmann, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Hawley, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Coyd, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jeremy Peterson, Connor Arroyo, Carne Verde, Martha Salinas, Mateo Robertson, Diane Russell, and Ruben Michaels, all the fine people who work on this program. And thank you for spreading the good word about our program and participating. So get out there, get active, tag You're It, have a wonderful weekend, and stay safe. And happy holidays.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.